Chapter 643. The Seal of Mountains and Rivers was a soul-level magic treasure. Only powerhouses in the spirit cultivation stage could unleash its full power. Moreover, in order to fully control the Seal of Mountains and Rivers, one had to master the corresponding control incantation. When the Emperor gave the Seal of Mountains and Rivers to Ji Tianqing, the Imperial Tutor gave him a brief introduction about soul-level magic treasures. Incantation was a power that was above martial arts. Weapons and equipment below the Tianyuan level could only be called weapons. Only top Tianyuan level magic treasures that could mobilize the power of heaven and earth could be called magic instruments. Only soul-level magic treasures that were more powerful than magic instruments could be called magic treasures. In the Tianxian continent, every magic treasure was priceless. They were rare and had the power to destroy heaven and earth. Moreover, every magic treasure had its corresponding secret control incantation. Unfortunately, the Emperor only gave the Seal of Mountains and Rivers to Ji Tianqing and did not give him the corresponding incantation. However, even if Ji Tianqing did not have the incantation and could only use the Seal of Mountains and Rivers to perform simple attacks, it was still very powerful. He was already satisfied, and silently planned in his heart that in the future, he would definitely find an opportunity to ask for the Seal of Mountains and Rivers from the Emperor. Lai Feng Demon King, it's time for you to die. Ji Tianqing looked at the Demon King of Lai Feng coldly and poured vital core into the Seal of Mountains and Rivers again. He was ready to kill the Demon King of Lai Feng in one blow. Although he did not have the incantation, forcibly activating the power of the Seal of Mountains and Rivers would consume a lot of vital core. However, he did not care. As long as he could kill the Demon King of Lai Feng, it would be worth it no matter how much vital core he consumed. However, at this moment, in the sky above the forest thousands of meters behind him, a mocking sneer suddenly sounded. Demon King of Lai Feng, you can't even take down a worm at level 3 of the Tianyuan stage. How dare you report to the Demon King? Humph! No wonder the Lai Feng tribe is getting weaker and weaker. With your abilities and tricks, you should go back to the northern desert. Don't embarrass our tribe. It was a slightly sharp male voice. His words were full of undisguised disdain and contempt. Ji Tianqing immediately frowned and turned to look behind him. In the sky behind him, a skinny demon clan man wearing a blood-red robe was walking over. The male demon looked a little strange. His skin was pale and bloodless, like a corpse. His dark red waist-length hair was tied into 3 braids. A few fangs were exposed in his flat mouth, and blood was dripping from them. Although this male demon maintained his human form, he still looked ferocious and terrifying. Ji Tianqing could also clearly sense that this person's strength and aura were even more unfathomable than the Demon King of Lai Feng. Vigilance flashed in his eyes as he temporarily ignored the severely injured Demon King of Lai Feng and stared at the blood-robed man. At this time, Demon King Lai Feng also flew into the sky and turned into a burly bald man. His whole body was stained with dark demon blood, and there was a huge bloody hole in his left arm. His entire left arm was drooping and unable to move. Even so, his aura was still fierce and ferocious. He stared at the blood-robed man with blood-red eyes and shouted in a low voice, "Xueqi, how good is your Bloodwing tribe? Weren't you also driven out of the Blood Cloud Valley and wandering in the ice field for many years? Moreover, Ji Tianqing was targeted by me first. Everything should be first come, first served." Before Demon King Lai Feng finished his words, he was interrupted by the blood-robed man, Xueqi. He looked up and laughed, and said in a contemptuous tone, "Ha ha ha. That's right, first come, first served is the default rule. But you have already made a move, and you failed to trap Ji Tianqing. Instead, you were injured by him. Since you didn't succeed, it's time for me to make a move. Demon King Lai Feng, you stay aside. Now I will let you see with your own eyes how I will capture Ji Tianqing, and how I will present him to His Majesty, the Demon King, and receive his reward." Demon King Lai Feng was furious, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. But his strength was weaker than Xueqi, and now that he was seriously injured, it was impossible for him to fall out with Xueqi. He gritted his teeth and retreated to the distant sky to watch the battle. He gritted his teeth and shouted, "Xueqi, if this boy didn't have a magic weapon, I would have already captured him. Since you are so confident, I would like to see what means you have to resist his magic weapon." Demon King Lai Feng made up his mind. After Xueqi was injured by the magic weapon, he would return the favor and laugh at him. At that time, he would return Xueqi words to him. However, Xueqi grinned and revealed a smug sneer. Demon King Lifeng, do you want to see me make a fool of myself? Ha ha ha, I have been secretly watching the battle for so long. If I didn't have full confidence, why would I show myself? As he spoke, Xueqianzhang's palm surged with a bloody light, and an old scroll appeared out of thin air. It was a dark red scroll made of an unknown material, and it looked like it had a history of thousands of years. The surface of the scroll was full of cracks, and there were a few irregular gaps, as if it would be broken with a touch. However, it was this tattered scroll that was faintly emitting an extremely shocking evil power. Ji Tianqing tried to touch it with his spiritual sense, and was immediately dizzy by the bloody smell in the scroll. He suddenly realized that the extremely old scroll must also be a magic treasure. Sure enough, after Demon King Lifeng saw the ancient scroll, he was immediately stunned, and his face was full of disbelief. Is this the scroll from that year? The relic of His Majesty Blood Emperor, the Corpse Mountain and Blood Sea Map? Demon King Liefeng's voice was trembling, and it was full of shock and a trace of jealousy. Xueqianzhang nodded and revealed a smug sneer. That's right. This is the magic weapon that my great-grandfather, the Great Blood Emperor, personally refined. In the war thousands of years ago, the Blood Emperor fell, and the Mountain of Corpses and Blood Sea Map went missing. However, my father and I spent more than 200 years, and almost searched the entire northern desert, and finally found it. With this magic weapon in hand, I can control monstrous power, and create a mountain of white bones and a boundless sea of blood. Why would I worry about not being able to revive the Bloodwing tribe? When Xueqianzhang talked about the origin and power of the Mountain of Corpses and Blood Sea Map, he was full of pride, and could be said to be in high spirits. Demon King Lifeng stared at the Mountain of Corpses and Blood Sea Map, and was stunned for a long time before he came back to his senses. He nodded dejectedly, and said in a low and dry voice, Xueqianzhang, no wonder you were so arrogant. You knew that the boy had a magic weapon to protect him, and you still dared to attack him. Haha, I didn't expect that you really found the legendary Mountain of Corpses and Blood Sea Map. You win. You win, and Ji Tianqing is yours. The appearance of the Mountain of Corpses and Blood Sea Map completely destroyed Demon King Liefeng's hope, and he was both shocked and jealous. Chapter 644. The severely injured Demon King Lifeng left. Only Ji Tianqing and Xueqianzhang were left in the sky above the Mangu forest. Ji Tianqing had been silent, secretly observing Xueqianzhang. The conversation between Xueqianzhang and Demon King Lifeng made him understand a lot of information. He just realized that there were many people who wanted to capture him as a sacrifice to the Demon Emperor. It was definitely not just Demon King Lifeng and Xueqianzhang. There were even more Devil King powerhouses watching him in the dark. And Xueqianzhang in front of him was not only the king of the Bloodwing tribe, but also the descendant of the Blood Emperor. Most importantly, Xueqianzhang had a treasure called the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map. He had not figured out how to control the seal of mountains and rivers, but Xueqianzhang obviously understood the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map very well. He would definitely be able to unleash a stronger power. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing did not hesitate to flap his golden wings, explode with the fastest speed, and escape towards the northwest. Whoosh! He turned into a golden streamer, instantly piercing the sky, and flew thousands of meters away. However, Xueqianzhang was already prepared, and chased after him with a smirk. Ha ha ha! Little bastard, don't you think it's too late to run now? Xueqianzhang shook his blood-red robe, turned into a bloody light, and caught up with Ji Tianqing in the blink of an eye. Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map. Xueqianzhang roared, and activated a vast amount of demonic power, crazily injecting it into the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map. Suddenly, the ancient and shabby scroll unfolded, blooming a bloody light that covered the sky. Swoosh! The dark red bloody light emitted a nauseating stench of blood, dyeing half the sky red, instantly covering a radius of 20 miles. In the blink of an eye, the sky and earth within a radius of 20 miles were covered by the bloody light, turning into a boundless sea of blood. The sky and earth disappeared, and there was only an endless dark red color left between heaven and earth. Even the vast forest below was submerged by the sea of blood. Tens of thousands of towering trees were corroded into dust by the sea of blood. The waves of blood rolled and swept across the sky, like a high wall, fiercely suppressed Ji Tianqing. At the critical moment, he did not hesitate to activate the power of the seal of mountains and rivers, condensing the divine golden light into a shield. Shwa! An oval-shaped golden light shield enveloped him, protecting him tightly. One after another, huge waves came crashing down and slapped on the golden light shield, making muffled booms. The golden light shield trembled under the attack, and cracks gradually appeared on its surface. Ji Tianqing was unable to fly in the air and was immediately swept into the blood sea by the huge waves, sinking and bobbing up and down in the endless blood water. Only at this moment did he notice that skeletons that covered the heavens and the earth surged out from the depths of the boundless sea of blood, and all of them charged madly towards him. He hurriedly used his true essence and activated the seal of mountains and rivers to release a golden beam of light towards the densely packed skeletons. Pang pang pang. Amidst a series of muffled sounds, tens of thousands of white skeletons were turned into dregs by the golden pillar of light and scattered in the sea of blood. However, after the golden light pillar dissipated, the sea of blood was still surging. Those shattered bone dregs, once again condensed into countless skeletons, charging over fearlessly. In the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of white skeletons drowned him, piling up into a mountain of white skeletons. The white skeletons crazily attacked the golden light shield, making the shield crackle and tremble. Ji Tianqing was unable to escape the sea of blood, and could only continue to inject true essence into the seal of mountains and rivers to maintain the golden light shield. Xueqi stepped on the blood waves in the air, with his hands behind his back, his blood-red robe fluttering, revealing a domineering and confident aura of an expert. His pale face revealed a complacent sneer. With a low voice he shouted, "Ji Tianqing, you have already fallen into my corpse mountain blood sea painting. Don't even think about escaping. Let me give you a word of advice. It's best if you give up struggling and obediently hand over the golden seal. If not, I don't mind killing you and devouring your Kenshin bloodline." Ji Tianqing was still struggling in the sea of blood, bitterly resisting the siege of the skeleton army. Hearing Xueqianzhang's words, he roared in a low voice, "Xueqianzhang, the ancient demon emperor ordered to capture me as a sacrifice. How dare you kill me? Aren't you afraid of being executed by the ancient demon emperor?" Xueqianzhang suddenly laughed disdainfully. "Ha ha. Little bastard, do you think I am as stupid as the others? I have the corpse mountain blood sea painting, and I can use this treasure to refine your Kenshin bloodline, and quickly reach the spirit cultivation realm. At that time, I will become the new blood emperor, and rule over countless tribes in the northern desert." Ji Tianqing's heart moved, as he vaguely understood something, and continued to roar. "Humph! Wishful thinking. Even if you reach the spirit cultivation realm, can you rule over other tribes? In the entire northern desert, are there no emperor-level experts? There are only two." Xueqianzhang blurted out, but stopped abruptly. He immediately reacted, and sneered contemptuously. "Haha, you little bastard, you still want to trick me? Since you are so stubborn, I will fulfill your wish, and turn you into a pool of blood now," Xueqianzhang said as he waved his palms with a ferocious look, and displayed an ancient and mysterious skill. As his palms drew a mysterious trajectory, he controlled the power of the corpse mountain blood sea painting, and the entire blood sea immediately surged. After a few breaths, a huge whirlpool with a radius of 1,000 meters appeared in the center of the blood sea, and it spun rapidly. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The huge blood whirlpool spun rapidly, and the surrounding seawater flew up into the sky, gradually forming a wall of blood waves. A terrifying devouring power that seemed to be able to swallow the heavens and the earth erupted from the whirlpool, and immediately enveloped Ji Tianqing. Suddenly, he involuntarily flew into the huge whirlpool. The whirlpool contained a terrifying strangling power, and once he was swallowed into the whirlpool, he would immediately be strangled into pieces. At the moment of life and death, Ji Tianqing did not hesitate to consume 50% of his power, and desperately activated the seal of mountains and rivers. Dragon shadow of mountains and rivers. With his angry roar, the seal of mountains and rivers suddenly expanded 10,000 times, and became the size of a house. Every line on the seal of mountains and rivers was clearly distinguishable, and it bloomed with a sacred golden light that covered the sky, and condensed into a huge and terrifying spear shadow. It was a 1,000-meter-long spear shadow, like a golden dragon, containing the power to destroy everything and destroy the heavens and the earth. The dragon spear shadow actually made a realistic dragon roar, and fiercely blasted into the huge whirlpool in the middle of the blood sea. At this moment, Ji Tianqing did not hesitate to activate his power to the limit, and finally displayed 30% of the power of the seal of mountains and rivers. Boom! In the deafening loud noise, the 1,000-meter-long dragon spear shadow fiercely blasted into the whirlpool of the blood sea, and the whirlpool collapsed on the spot, rolling up a monstrous blood wave. The whirlpool was blasted into pieces, and the huge wave spread out in all directions, immediately turning the entire blood sea upside down. Chapter 645. The whirlpool in the middle of the blood sea collapsed, and the violent power spread to the surroundings. In just a few breaths, the whole blood sea was completely chaotic and fell apart. Amidst the loud rumbling, monstrous waves rolled up in the sea of blood, and a huge crack appeared. An endless amount of blood flowed out of the crack, and its power was also rapidly draining away. Seeing this scene, Xueqi's face immediately changed. He was shocked and roared angrily. "Bastard! You damned reptile! How dare you break this king's family heirloom?" In Xueqi's eyes, the Blood Emperor's Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map was his family's treasure, extremely precious and powerful. This treasure was his hope to break through to the spirit refining realm and revitalize the Bloodwing tribe. But now, Ji Tianqing had broken a crack in the mountain of corpses and blood sea painting. His heart was aching so much that it was about to bleed. Ji Tianqing ignored him and flew to the crack without hesitation. Swoosh! With a flash of golden light, Ji Tianqing passed through the crack and finally escaped from the blood sea. He returned to the dense forest, and once again saw the dark green forest and the sky above his head. He only felt incomparably familiar. At the same time, Xueqi put away the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map, and held the old scroll with both hands, carefully examining it. Seeing a finger-long crack on the scroll, his whole face was distorted with heartache. The Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map was already very old, and now with a crack, not only was its power greatly reduced, but it also took a lot of effort and resources to repair it. "Ah! Ji Tianqing, you little bastard! I'm going to tear you to shreds!" Xueqi roared angrily, put the Corpse Mountain Blood Sea Map into the spatial ring, and crazily rushed towards Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing's power was more than half consumed, and his fighting power was very weak, and his face was as pale as paper. He did not want to be entangled with Xueqi, and immediately flapped his golden wings to escape. Xueqi pursued relentlessly, turning into a blood-colored light blade that streaked across the sky, and began his pursuit as fast as lightning. In just a few breaths of time, Xueqi had caught up with Ji Tianqing. The distance between the two of them was shortened to about 300 meters. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing's heart was burning with anxiety, and in a moment of desperation, he had no choice but to use the flying sword secret technique. Swish! He activated the sword embryo in his body and it flew out of his body, transforming into a 3-meter-long golden sword. Then, he stepped on the giant golden sword and flew toward the northwest as fast as he could. Back in the giant spirit city, Ji Tianqing had once relied on this secret technique to escape the pursuit of the giant spirit god. At that time, Zhuling Shen had half a step into the spirit refining realm and was much stronger than Xueqi. Even Zhuling Shen could not catch up with Ji Tianqing. How could Xueqi catch up with him? In the blink of an eye, the distance between Ji Tianqing and Xueqi had increased by several hundred meters. After 100 breaths of time, Ji Tianqing had left Xueqi more than 10 miles away. Not long after, his figure disappeared into the clouds above the forest, completely escaping from Xueqi pursuit. Xueqi was filled with unwillingness as he chased for a quarter of an hour, but in the end, he had no choice but to give up. He stood in the sky, panting violently, and cursed in rage. "Ji Tianqing! You damn bastard, the next time I see you, I will definitely take your dog life." After roaring a few words, his anger dissipated a little, and he turned and flew away. In the evening, Ji Tianqing finally rushed back to the central state city and returned to the monarch mansion. Not long after he returned to the Tianqing palace, Ji Ku and Yan heard the news and rushed over to meet him. Seeing his pale face and exhausted appearance, the two of them were immediately filled with worry and hurriedly asked him what happened. "Brother Tianqing, what happened? Why is your face so pale?" "Brother Tianqing, did you fight with someone?" Ji Tianqing only had 30% of his true origin left. His spirit and strength were very weak, so his complexion was obviously not good. He brought Ji Ku and Yan into the study, and said solemnly, "That's right. These 2 days I was rushing between the Central State City and the Greenwood City, and even fought a few battles with people. Today I left the Greenwood City, and on the way back to the Central State City, I was ambushed by the devil race experts in the Mangu Forest." Ji Tianqing gave a simple explanation of what had happened. When Ji Ku and Yan heard, they became even more nervous and worried. What? You were ambushed by the devil race experts? The remnants of the devil race are too savage. They actually dared to step into the central state, and so unscrupulously chased after you. Ji Tianxing nodded and said earnestly, the ancient devil emperor gave the order, and the devil kings under his command came out in full force, vowing to capture me and refine my bloodline. The devil race came in full force, and many devil king experts must have come to the central state, and are secretly moving. From now on, the two of you have to be careful, and try to stay in the Emperor Mansion in the Central State City. If there's nothing particularly important, try not to leave the Central State City. Ji Ku and Yen understood the urgency of the situation, and nodded solemnly. Ji Tianxing reminded the two of a few more things, and then entered the secret chamber to cultivate in seclusion. He sat cross-legged in the middle of the secret chamber, holding a spirit stone in each hand, and silently circulating his true origin. After a day and night of circulating his true origin finally recovered. Next, he opened the heavenly spirit heavy array, and used the powerful gravity to temper his body, and quickly improve his strength. The secret chamber was already rich in spirit qi, and he had abundant cultivation resources, so his cultivation progress was naturally fast. Coupled with the powerful effect of the heavenly spirit heavy array, his body was constantly tempering and strengthening, and his strength was rapidly improving. This time, Ji Tianxing wanted to break through to the 4th level of the heavenly origin stage in one go. North of the Greenwood City, in the Duanmu family's mansion. In a magnificent palace, in a spacious and luxurious bedroom, the second madam was sitting by the bed in a daze. Her face was very ugly, and she looked like she was heartbroken. Recalling the way Duanmu Feiyu died, she was overcome with grief, and she sobbed with a sorrowful expression. My poor Feiyu. After suffering so many years of grievances at home, I finally could hold my head high, but I was killed by a villain. Feiyu left me alone. How can I live in the future? The maid standing by the side quickly took out a handkerchief to wipe the tears of the second madam, and patiently comforted her. Madam, the dead can't be revived. Don't be too sad. Don't worry, the master will soon find out the truth. Find the murderer who killed the second young master, and avenge him. The second madam shook her head, and sobbed in a low voice. Even if the master can find the murderer and avenge Feiyu, so what? The first madam has always been at odds with me, and she has long wanted to find a chance to drive me out of the family. Now that Feiyu is dead, I have no one to rely on. The first madam will definitely not let this go, and will definitely deal with me more severely. Chapter 646. Second madam's tone was full of despair and helplessness. She seemed to be out of her wits and in a mess. She wasn't like first madam, who was born in a rich and powerful family. Even without Duanmu Yulong, she still had the support of her maternal family. Duanmu Feiyu was her support. Now that Duanmu Feiyu was dead, her position in the Duanmu family would be even lower. The maid comforted her for a while, but it was useless. Instead, she cried even more sadly. This maid was called Yi, second madam's trusted aide. She had been by second madam's side for many years and was highly regarded and trusted. Yi saw second madam crying in despair. After a moment of contemplation, she suddenly thought of something and immediately came up with an idea. Madam, this servant has thought of a person who can help you. Second madam raised her head and looked at her with teary eyes. She asked, who can help me now? Yi said with a solemn expression, Madam, have you forgotten? Your adoptive father is still in Central Continent City. He will definitely support you and help you solve this disaster. Adoptive father? Second madam was stunned. She quickly wiped the tears from her eyes and nodded. That's right. I can still ask adoptive father for help. Although I have rarely contacted him after marrying into the Duanmu family, he has many tricks. But he has a lot of tricks up his sleeve. He can definitely help me get rid of that bitch. The only person who can threaten me is first madam. Regardless of whether Feiyu was killed by her or not, she won't let go of this opportunity. I can't just sit and wait for death. I must take this opportunity to take the initiative and topple first madam as soon as possible. Only then can I get rid of my worries. Second madam had someone to rely on and her backbone, so she quickly calmed down. She thought for a moment and then had Yi bring a pen and paper. She began to write a letter to adoptive father. After she finished writing the letter, she handed it to Yi and instructed in a serious tone, Yi, Immediately arrange for reliable people to send this letter to the underground ghost city in Central Continent City. As you command. E took the letter and quickly bowed before leaving the room. Second Madam looked out the window with a gloomy expression. A cold light flashed through her eyes. Adoptive father's hands and feet are crippled and his strength is constantly declining. He has been hiding in the underground ghost city like a crazy drunkard, muddling through his days. But after all, he is experienced and good at using all kinds of sinister methods. He can definitely help me get rid of First Madam. Second Madam was only the daughter of a small family back then. Apart from being a bit beautiful and scheming, there wasn't much else that stood out about her. Her adoptive father, Xueqi, had contributed a lot to her being able to climb up the social ladder and successfully marry into the Duanmu family. Many people in the Duanmu family thought that after Second Madam woke up, she would definitely make a big fuss and cause chaos in the residence. Duanmu Huang and the other elders had already made the necessary preparations. However, in the next 2 days, Second Madam didn't cause any trouble. She had stayed in her room, waiting. S's. Late at night on the third day, the maid Yi quickly walked into the Second Madam's room and respectfully reported the news. Madam, Grandfather Hua has arrived. He's waiting for you in the secret room. Hearing this, Second Madam's spirit was suddenly shaken. Her eyes flashed with hope. Adoptive father is finally here. E, come with me to the secret room. Second Madam took E out of the room. They entered a secret passage that led to the palace's underground and hurried to the secret room for practice. Not long after, they reached the end of the passage and came to the door of a stone room. E, guard outside the door. Second Madam instructed. She raised her hand to push open the stone door and entered the dimly lit secret room. This secret room wasn't big. It was only 10 meters in radius. There were many Tianyuan arrays set up inside, which were very hidden and confidential. The secret room was empty. There was only a white jade table and 2 stone stools. As soon as Second Madam entered the secret room, she saw a black figure sitting in front of the stone table. It was an old man in a black robe. He wasn't tall or sturdy. In fact, he looked very thin and weak. His waist was bent, and he looked a little sloppy. Under his loose black robe, it was obvious that he was missing a left arm and a right leg. His long messy hair covered half of his face. Half of his face was exposed. There were 2 raised scars. In his deeply sunken eye sockets, there was a flickering eye. The black-robed old man sat quietly by the stone table. He was looking down at his right hand. In his skinny palm, there was a finger-long dark red flame snake. It was spiraling and dancing in a lively manner. Second Madam walked to the old man and bowed respectfully. She called out, "Adoptive father." The black-robed old man was her husband, Xueqi. Xueqi didn't look up. He was still staring at the flame snake in his palm. He said in a low and hoarse voice, "Shutong, if I remember correctly, you haven't contacted me for 10 years, right? Could it be that you only think of this old man when you're in trouble?" Hearing this, Second Madam was a little embarrassed. She quickly bowed and explained with a smile, "Adoptive father, you've misunderstood me. Shutong knows that you don't like to deal with people. You just want to spend your days in peace, so Shutong doesn't dare to disturb you." Without waiting for Second Madam to finish speaking, Xueqi interrupted her and said in a low voice, "No need to explain. If I blame you, I wouldn't have come today." Hearing this, Second Madam was relieved. She quickly asked, "Adoptive father, does that mean you agree?" Xueqi said in a calm and indifferent tone, "Of course. I can help you deal with First Madam and help you secure your position as Madam. However, I also need you to do something for me." Second Madam nodded without hesitation and said, "Don't worry, adoptive father. As long as it's within Shutong's power, I won't refuse." Xueqi turned over his palm. The flame snake in his palm disappeared and was replaced by a scroll. He put the scroll on the stone table and said to Second Madam, "Adoptive father has always wanted to deal with an old matter. Now, there's finally some progress. The person in the portrait has come to Zhongzhou City. You have to find a way to find this person and capture him for me." Second Madam hurriedly reached out to pick up the scroll and unfurled it. When she saw the person in the portrait, she was immediately stunned. That was because the person in the portrait was a little boy who was a little over 10 years old. Although the boy was young, he was very handsome. There was a majestic aura between his eyebrows. It was obvious that he came from a noble background. Moreover, although he was a human youth, he had long dark red hair. There was also a red flame mark on his forehead. It was quite exotic. Although second madam was puzzled, she didn't say anything. She stared at the portrait for a moment, then solemnly put away the scroll. Chapter 647. 6 days passed in the blink of an eye. It was early in the morning and the monarch's residence was as peaceful as ever. To the southeast of the mountain range, there was a mirror-like lake with a radius of 100 miles. It was Graceful Cloud Lake. The lake was surrounded by mountains and was shrouded in clouds. The lake water was so clear that one could see the bottom. It contained strands of 5-colored spirit energy that refracted colorful lights, making it seem like a dream. This lake was one of the scenic spots in the monarch's residence. Although Graceful Cloud Lake's location was a bit remote, there were always people with stories who would come here to relax and enjoy the scenery. At this moment, under a 1,000-year-old tree by the lake, there stood a beautiful woman in a long green dress. She was tall and graceful, with a pure and beautiful face. Although she didn't wear any makeup or jewelry, it couldn't hide her natural beauty. Moreover, she had an innate noble and demure temperament, like an orchid in an empty valley, quiet and fragrant. She was Xueqi, who had just become a heavenly consort not long ago. Xueqi stood under the ancient tree, her clear eyes staring at the sparkling lake. Her expression was as calm as water, but there was a hint of worry between her brows. A gentle breeze blew against her face, causing her long hair to sway and dance gently. However, this beautiful lake couldn't dispel the melancholy in her eyes or the melancholy in her heart. And the person who could make her feel melancholy was her lover, her current husband, the son of heaven, Long Yunxiao. The imperial court had already held a grand wedding for her and the son of heaven, and had even invited all the powerful cultivators of the human race to attend the ceremony. Now that she was a well-known heavenly consort, all the women in the world were envious of her. After the wedding, the son of heaven even brought her into the monarch's residence. She wasn't the imperial son, but she was able to live and cultivate in the monarch's residence as a heavenly consort. It was a most fortunate thing, and an honor for her. She ought to be happy and proud. But now, she couldn't feel happy at all. When the son of heaven chose her as his heavenly consort, she had a premonition that she would become the heavenly consort who was closest to others, but farthest from others. Now, her premonition had finally come true. On the night of the wedding, the emperor would rather drink himself into a stupor in the study room than return to his room to sleep. The emperor didn't even remove her red veil and let her sit in her room for the whole night. Although the emperor brought her into the emperor's mansion, he never looked for her again after settling her down. Half a month had passed, and Xueqi's uneasiness and melancholy grew stronger and stronger. Therefore, she came to Yunxiu Lake early in the morning to relax. Unknowingly, Xueqi had been standing under the tree by the lake for more than 2 hours without moving a single step. At this moment, in the sky not far behind her, there was a clear chirp of a bird and a woman's voice. "Aren't you an sister N?" This crisp female voice broke the tranquility of the lakeside. Xueqi snapped out of her daze and turned her head to look behind her. She saw a spiritual bird with pure white feathers flying towards her. Standing on the back of the spirit bird was a woman wearing a long dress, a jade crown, and a golden hairpin. That woman was about 18 or 19 years old. She had a graceful figure and a beautiful face. Compared to Xueqi, she wasn't inferior. The only difference was that their temperaments were different. When Xueqi saw her face clearly, she was also startled. A trace of surprise appeared on her charming face. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, that white spirit bird flew to the lakeside and landed. The woman in the palace dress jumped onto the grass by the lakeside and walked towards Xueqi. "Sister N." "Oh no, I should call you heavenly consort now." The woman in the palace dress arrived in front of Xueqi and bowed. She asked with a smile, "Heavenly consort, why are you here?" Xueqi looked at the woman in the palace dress and frowned in confusion. She asked, "Xueqi, why are you in the emperor's mansion?" Without a doubt, the woman in the palace dress was Lan Xueqi. She saw that Xueqi's expression was strange and seemed to be deeply worried. She asked with concern, "Heavenly consort, you just got married to the emperor. This is a joyous occasion for the whole world to celebrate. You don't seem to be happy. Could it be that something happened?" When Xueqi heard Lan Xueqi's words, her lips curled into a self-mocking smile. She shook her head lightly and said, Little sister Xueqi, don't call me heavenly consort. You should just call me sister. And Lan Xueqi widened her eyes slightly and revealed a puzzled expression. Sisterin, what's wrong? Could it be that you and the emperor quarreled? And Xuan shook her head again and said calmly, the emperor is incomparably honorable. He's also my husband. How could I quarrel with him? Lan Xueqi revealed a concerned expression and pretended to be worried. She said, Sisterin, you must have something on your mind for you to come to Yunxiu Lake alone to relax. If you don't mind, why don't you tell little sister about it? Perhaps you'll feel better after you say it. And Xuan was indeed feeling depressed. She couldn't find anyone to talk to. At this moment, she saw that Lan Xueqi was full of concern. After hesitating for a moment, she nodded and said, Thank you for your concern, little sister. It's just that I've been alone for too long and that's why I'm feeling depressed. Everyone knows that a heavenly concubine has an honorable status. To be able to live together with the emperor is a marriage that's cultivated over 3 lifetimes. However, the world doesn't know that when you love someone without any reservations, but that person treats you like a dispensable decoration, what kind of situation and feeling is that? And Xuan opened up her heart and slowly told Lan Xueqi the words that had been bottled up in her heart for a long time. Lan Xueqi listened quietly and comforted her from time to time. She appeared to be very gentle and kind. She was also quite concerned about Xuan. However, Xuan didn't notice that in the depths of Lan Xueqi's eyes, there was a hint of a sneer that was gloating over Xuan's misfortune. The more Xuan was ignored, the more depressed she felt. Lan Xueqi, on the other hand, became happier and more relieved. Compared to Yun Yao, Lan Xueqi hated Xuan even more. After all, Xuan became a heavenly concubine and snatched away the position that she yearned for even in her dreams. After a long time, Xuan finally finished speaking the words in her heart and vented her depression. Only then did she calm down. She turned her head to look at Lan Xueqi and said with a sincere expression, Younger sister Xueqi, thank you for accompanying me to relax and listen to me nag about these things. Lan Xueqi hurriedly waved her hands and said, Older sisterin, you're too polite. Actually, I can't help you much. This is a matter of your relationship with the emperor. If you want to untie the knot in your heart, you must muster up the courage to speak to the emperor clearly. After all, you're now a legitimate heavenly concubine. You don't have to swallow your anger and compromise like this anymore. And Xuan shook her head slightly and said with a bitter smile, I actually want to have a good talk with the emperor and let him understand my feelings. However, ever since I entered the monarch estate, I haven't seen him again. Every time I go to find him, the guards say that he's in closed-door cultivation. Hearing this, Lan Xueqi immediately frowned and said doubtfully, That's impossible. In this half a month, I've already seen the emperor several times. Chapter 648. However, Lan Xueqi quickly stopped halfway through her sentence and did not continue speaking. When Xuan heard this, her body trembled and her face turned pale. Her emotions, which she had finally managed to calm down, were instantly thrown into chaos. She only felt a sharp pain in her heart, as if it had been stabbed by a sword. It was so painful that she couldn't breathe. When Lan Xueqi saw her reaction, she hurriedly waved her small hands and explained anxiously, Big sisterin, I didn't say anything just now. Don't take it to heart. And Xuan's heart had already been stabbed by a sword. How could she not take it to heart? She took a deep breath and suppressed the pain in her heart. She tried her best to remain calm and asked, Little sister Xueqi, is what you said just now true? Why does the Son of Heaven visit Yunyao every 2 or 3 days? How do you know? Lan Xueqi pretended to be hesitant and remained silent. She looked like she wanted to say something but stopped herself. And Xuan patiently asked, Little sister Xueqi, the Son of Heaven is infatuated with Yunyao. This is something everyone knows. You don't have to worry about it. There's no harm in saying it. Lan Xueqi nodded and said with a serious expression, I was able to enter the monarch estate because I was saved by Yunyao. I stayed by her side as a female official and managed the maids in Yunyao's palace. I know very well who goes in and out of Yunyao's palace every day. In the past 2 months, the Son of Heaven would come to Yunyao's palace every few days to find Yunyao. I saw this with my own eyes. Every time they met, they would stay in a secret room for about half a day. Outsiders aren't allowed to enter the secret room. I don't know what they're doing either. When she heard this, And Suwen's body trembled again and her face turned as pale as paper. Her heart hurt even more. Her vision turned black and she almost couldn't stand straight. A man and a woman alone in a room, and no one is allowed to see them. What else can they do? And Suwen revealed a bitter and cold smile. Her aura became desolate. It was obvious that she was heartbroken. Lan Huixin hurriedly supported her and muttered angrily, "Big sisterin, you're a heavenly consort now. You can't continue to endure this. Otherwise, you'll be even more miserable in the future. If I were you, I definitely wouldn't sit by and do nothing about this. After all, the emperor has already taken you as his concubine, and he still has an affair with another woman. This is really immoral and damaging to the dignity of the imperial court. Although I also think that it's inappropriate for them to do this, I don't have the right to talk to the emperor, nor do I dare to criticize Yun Yao. After all, I'm her servant." And Suwen's heart was filled with despair, and a strong sense of anger began to well up within it. After hearing Lan Huixin's words, she nodded with a determined expression and said, "That's right. Although I love the Son of Heaven deeply, I will not compromise to this extent. I'm going to look for Yun Yao now and talk to her face to face." As soon as she finished speaking, and Suwen turned around and prepared to leave Yunxiu Lake and head towards Yun Yao Palace, Lan Huixin hurriedly pulled her towards the spirit beasts and birds by the shore. "Sisterin, it just so happens that I'm also going back to Yun Yao Palace. Let me take you there." And Suwen didn't say anything. She only nodded. Soon after, the two of them left Yunxiu Lake on the spirit beasts and flew towards Yun Yao Palace. About an hour later, the spirit beasts and birds landed outside Yun Yao Palace. After the two of them landed, Lan Huixin hurriedly instructed Suwen, "Sisterin, I'm going back to the palace first. Come visit me later. If Yun Yao asks, you mustn't say that I told her. I'm now her official. If she finds out that I told you these things, she definitely won't let me off." And Suwen nodded with a solemn expression and said, "Sister Huixin, don't worry. I'm already very grateful that you're willing to tell me these things. Of course, I'll keep it a secret for you." Lan Huixin was finally relieved. She stepped through the gates of Yun Yao Palace and returned to the palace. And Suwen stood outside the palace for about a quarter of an hour. Then, she walked up to the main gate and informed the guards of her purpose for coming. "Go report to Miss Yun Yao. Tell her that Heavenly Consort and Suwen has come to visit and wants to talk to her face to face. Heavenly Consort, please wait here for a moment." The guards bowed and hurriedly entered the palace to report the news. And Suwen stood outside the gates and waited patiently. Not long after, the guards returned and led her into Yun Yao Palace. They walked towards the reception hall. When she entered the hall, she saw that Yun Yao was already sitting at the head of the table. Yun Yao was looking at her with a calm expression. Yun Yao didn't know that Heavenly Consort was coming. "Please excuse me for not going out to meet you." Yun Yao stood up and bowed when she saw Suwen enter the hall. She then instructed the maid beside her, "Prepare a seat for Heavenly Consort and serve her tea." And Suwen walked into the hall and stood still. She looked at Yun Yao coldly and said in an indifferent tone, "No need. I'm only here to talk to you face to face. I'll leave once I'm done." Yun Yao frowned slightly when she saw Suwen's reaction. She was secretly puzzled. It seems like Suwen came with ill intentions. But I didn't offend her? Thinking up to this point, she waved her hand and dismissed the maids in the hall. "You're all dismissed." After the maids left, only Yun Yao and Suwen were left in the hall. At this moment, Suwen finally spoke. "Miss Yun Yao, everyone knows that the emperor is infatuated with you. Why don't you accept him?" Yun Yao's expression changed slightly. She frowned and asked in the same indifferent tone, "Heavenly Consort, did you come here today to denounce me? I have nothing to do with the emperor, nor do I have any romantic feelings for him. Why should I accept him?" "Humph." And Suwen gave a cold humph. She sneered and said, "Fine. Since you have nothing to do with the emperor, then why are you still in contact with him? Why do you have a private relationship with him? Everyone knows that Yun Yao is as cold as ice and frost. She's like a celestial fairy who doesn't eat the food of mortals. I didn't expect that this is just the ignorance of the world. They don't know the true nature of a celestial fairy, and would actually do such a disgraceful thing that damages the dignity of the imperial court." Although Suwen spoke elegantly, the meaning behind her words was obviously scolding her for being shameless and seducing the emperor, Long Yunxiao. Even though Yun Yao was an indifferent and cold celestial fairy, she was still infuriated by Suwen's words. Her expression turned cold and a cold light flashed through her eyes. She shouted in a low voice, "Heavenly consort, have you ever thought of the consequences of framing me without distinguishing right from wrong? Not to mention you, even if Long Yunxiao was here, he wouldn't dare to sully my chastity." And Suwen gave tit for tat and sneered, "Hee hee, the emperor loves you. Of course he wouldn't bear to criticize you like this. However, I want to make it clear to you today. No matter what kind of entanglement you had with the emperor, it's all in the past. Since I've already become the heavenly consort, I definitely won't tolerate you having private dealings with the emperor. If you really have nothing to do with the emperor, then you should make a clean break with him and keep yourself clean. Although this is a private matter between the three of us, it's also related to the dignity of the imperial court and the human race. I hope you can conduct yourself with dignity. Otherwise, no one will be able to clean up this mess. We'll definitely become the laughingstock of the world. That's all I have to say. Please behave yourself." Chapter 649. Yun Yao sat on the seat of honor and watched Suwen's departing figure. Her brows were tightly furrowed, and her eyes were filled with anger. Early in the morning, Suwen came to Yun Yao Palace to look for her and scolded her to her face. She even gave her a warning. However, she didn't do anything and never had any private interactions with Long Yunxiao. Suwen's words were completely baffling to her, and she felt incomparably wronged. What the hell was this? Yun Yao was so angry that she couldn't breathe properly. She sat on the throne for a long time before she finally calmed down. 15 minutes later, she suppressed her anger. Her expression and temperament returned to normal, and she became as cold as ice again. She stood up and walked out of the main hall, about to leave Yun Yao Palace. When she walked out of the main hall, she happened to meet the female official, Lan Huixin. Lan Huixin saw that her aura was cold and her expression was indifferent. She quickly went up to her and asked with concern, "Big Sister Yun, what happened? Where are you going?" Yun Yao glanced at her and said calmly, "It's nothing. I'm going to Tianqing Palace to discuss some important matters with Imperial Prince Tianqing. No matter who comes to visit today, they will all be rejected." After saying that, she rode her spirit crane into the sky and rushed towards Tianqing Palace. Lan Huixin stood at the entrance of the main hall and watched the spirit crane fly into the distance. Her lips curled into a sneer. "Humph. After being scolded by that silly woman Suwen, you're going to complain to Ji Tianqing with a heart full of grievances? I'd like to see if Suwen can still keep her position as heavenly consort after the three of you make a fuss." When Yun Yao arrived at Tianqing Palace, it was already close to noon. The guards guarding Tianqing Palace's entrance were very familiar with her. When they saw her, they immediately opened the door to welcome her. The guards led Yun Yao into Tianqing Palace. They didn't go to the reception hall and went straight to Ji Tianqing's study. Not long after Yun Yao waited in the study, Ji Tianqing rushed over after hearing the news. When Ji Tianqing stepped into the study, Yun Yao's eyes stared at him. She carefully sized him up and immediately revealed a look of surprise. Although Ji Tianqing was dressed as usual, wearing a white robe with cloud patterns and a clear jade belt around his waist, he appeared to be in high spirits and extraordinarily handsome. However, Yun Yao could clearly feel that Ji Tianqing's aura had become even more domineering and fierce. It seemed that his power had improved again. At this moment, Ji Tianqing walked over and sat down in front of her. He smiled and asked, "Yao Yao, what are you looking at? It's only been a few days and you don't recognize me anymore?" Yun Yao ignored his teasing and asked seriously, "Tianqing, I haven't seen you for a few days. It seems that your cultivation has made a breakthrough again?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a smile, "That's right. On my way back from Azure Wood City, I was ambushed by 2 Devil King powerhouses. After I came back, I went into seclusion to cultivate. After 6 days and 6 nights of seclusion, I finally broke through to the 4th level of Sky Origin stage." Hearing this, Yun Yao was shocked. She praised with a complicated tone, "It's only been 2 months since you broke through to the 3rd level of Sky Origin stage. Tianqing, the speed of your growth is really unprecedented in the past and will never be surpassed." Although Ji Tianqing accidentally created another miracle, which made his sweetheart shocked and praised him, he wasn't arrogant. However, he wasn't arrogant and complacent. He calmly explained, "Yao Yao, You know how powerful the sword god is. I have the bloodline of Kenshin, so my cultivation speed is much faster than ordinary geniuses. For me, there is no bottleneck from the first level to the 9th level. It's a smooth journey. Only when I break through a level, I will encounter a bottleneck and spend more time. Luckily, Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing had known each other for a long time. She had seen him turn from a useless young master to a peerless genius. She was shocked by Ji Tianqing too many times. She had gradually gotten used to his monstrous talent and the miracles he created. The two chatted for a while. Ji Tianqing asked seriously, Yao Yao, why did you come to see me? Yun Yao said seriously, this morning, someone from the Hidden Cloud Pavilion reported to me that they found out about the Duanmu clan. I don't know what happened to the Duanmu clan. The First Lady couldn't bear the pain of losing her son. She suddenly lost her mind and stabbed Duanmu Huang. She was locked up in the clan's forbidden area. The position of the First Lady of the Duanmu clan is vacant. The clan has been in a bit of chaos recently. It's not peaceful. When Ji Tianqing heard the news, he was stunned for a moment before he revealed a playful smile. Haha, Duanmu Yulong has been dead for 3 months. If the First Lady couldn't bear the pain of losing her son, she would have gone crazy long ago. How could she only go crazy now? It seems that the Duanmu clan has started to fight among themselves. The First Lady obviously lost. Yun Yao nodded and said, that's right. The more they fight among themselves, the more advantageous it is for us. The internal strife will gradually weaken the Duanmu clan's power. It will also make Duanmu Huang busy and unable to deal with our plan. Ji Tianqing pondered for a moment. Then he said seriously, let's wait and see. Let them fight among themselves. Yao Yao, tell the Hidden Cloud Pavilion to keep an eye on the Duanmu clan. If there's any news, tell me as soon as possible. As for the next plan, we'll act according to the situation. The two had just finished discussing business when hurried footsteps were heard outside the study. Then, Jika's voice sounded outside the door. Big brother Tianqing, something bad has happened. Ji Tianqing frowned. He waved his hand and released a golden light to open the door. Jika rushed into the study anxiously and quickly said, Big brother Tianqing, Yan is missing. Hearing this news, Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao's expressions changed, and they stood up. Yan is missing? What's going on? Where did he go? When did he go missing? Jika quickly explained. Yesterday morning, junior brother Yan went to Zhongzhou City to contact the Hidden Cloud Pavilion's people and send them information as usual. He should have come back last night, but he hasn't come back yet. I contacted Steward Li of the Hidden Cloud Pavilion, but Steward Li said that Yan didn't go to receive any information yesterday. Upon hearing this, Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao immediately understood that something must have happened to Yan. The two of them walked out of the study without hesitation and quickly rushed outside. Ji Ke quickly followed and wanted to look for Yan with them. However, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and told her, Ku, Yao Yao and I will go to Zhongzhou City to look for Yan. You stay in Tianqing Palace and don't leave. Wait for our news. Ji Ke had no choice but to stay in Tianqing Palace. She said worriedly, Big brother Tianqing, you must be careful. Don't let anything happen to you. Ji Tianqing nodded and summoned Qian Yu from the 100 Treasures brocade pouch. He and Yun Yao rode Qian Yu out of Tianqing Palace and rushed to the exit of the Monarch Mansion. After the two of them left the Monarch Mansion and entered Zhongzhou City, they first rushed to the branch of the Hidden Cloud Pavilion and asked Steward Li about the specific situation. Chapter 650. The Hidden Cloud Pavilion was an intelligence organization nurtured by the Yun family. It was best at gathering information, investigating clues, and assassinating. The Yun family had set up 3 branches of the Hidden Cloud Pavilion in Zhongzhou City, with more than 300 secret agents stationed there. Deacon Li was in charge of the Southern City branch, with more than 100 secret agents working under him. After receiving Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao's orders, Deacon Li immediately sent half of his men to investigate in the city. In everyone's eyes, Yan route from the Monarch Mansion to the Southern City branch was fixed. Moreover, Yan had important matters to attend to, so he wouldn't wander around the city. He went missing on the way to the Southern City branch, narrowing the scope of the investigation. They should be able to find him soon. Deacon Li saw that Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao were full of worries, so he comforted them. Eldest Miss, young Master Ji, please rest assured. The secret agents will definitely be able to find the news in 12 hours at most. Please don't be impatient and wait patiently for a while. Ji Tianqing nodded and asked Deacon Li to withdraw for the time being. He and Yun Yao stayed in the secret chamber, quietly waiting for the results. Time passed by quietly and 12 hours passed quickly. However, the secret agents hadn't found the result yet. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao both realized that the situation was not good. Yan Er's disappearance was probably very complicated. Yun Yao called Deacon Li and asked him about the situation. Deacon Li's expression was a bit solemn and he said in a low and deep voice, "Eldest Miss, this matter is very complicated. The other party did it very covertly and their methods are very clever. According to the subordinate's estimation, the other party is most likely an assassin who is proficient in ambushes and assassinations, and it was premeditated long ago." Hearing his words, Ji Tianqing immediately frowned and asked, "Deacon Li, in that case, you can conclude that Yan was kidnapped by the assassin?" Deacon Li quickly nodded and said, "That's right. Those assassins are not weak and their methods are very ingenious. Even with the strength of our hidden cloud pavilion, it's difficult to find the result in a short time." Yun Yao frowned and muttered to herself, "There are only a few assassin organizations that can be compared to the hidden cloud pavilion. Who could have done it?" She and Ji Tianqing looked at each other, and a cold light flashed in their eyes. Obviously, they had guessed the result. If it wasn't done by the demon race, then it was most likely done by the Duanmu clan. Deacon Li nodded again and said, "That's right. According to the information sent back by the spies, this subordinate also thinks that the Duanmu clan is the most suspicious. Previously, we investigated that there were a few experts from the Soul Herding Hall who appeared near the Wufeng Manor and hid in the dark for 3 days. Just now, I have already ordered the spies to focus on investigating Wufeng Zhuang. I believe there will be results soon." Hearing Deacon Li's words, Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao felt slightly relieved. The two of them suppressed their worries and waited patiently in the secret chamber for another 6 hours. Finally, Deacon Li rushed to the secret room again and reported the news in a hurry. Reporting to Mr. Ji, the spies have already investigated the results. Yesterday morning, Yan was attacked near the Wufeng Manor and was captured by the experts of the Soul Herding Hall. Those experts of the Soul Herding Hall captured Yan in the Black Cloud Alley and then disappeared completely. Hearing this result, Yun Yao suddenly frowned and asked doubtfully, "Yan was captured in the Black Cloud Alley? Why did the people of the Soul Herding Hall go there?" Deacon Li shook his head with a dignified expression. "This subordinate doesn't know, but this subordinate has sent people into the underground dark city and is doing his best to investigate." When Ji Tianqing heard the two unfamiliar names Black Cloud Alley and Underground Dark City, he immediately showed a puzzled expression. What does the Underground Dark City mean? Yun Yao motioned Deacon Li to retreat and patiently explained to Ji Tianqing. "Tianqing, you just came to Zhongzhou City not long ago and have been busy with cultivation, so you haven't heard of the Underground Dark City. The Underground Dark City is a dark underground city hidden under the surface of Zhongzhou City. Speaking of the origin of this Underground Dark City, it has to be traced back to the ancient times. At that time, the demon army swept the world and almost occupied the entire continent. The demon army besieged Zhongzhou City. The experts of the human race, demon race and water race fought desperately and launched an earth-shattering war. In that earth-shattering war, more than half of Zhongzhou City was destroyed and turned into a dilapidated city. The earth in a radius of hundreds of miles turned into an abyss. The remaining half of Zhongzhou City also sank into the abyss and was swallowed by the darkness. Many years later, the demon army was defeated by the alliance of various races and retreated to the northern desert. They retreated and recuperated. The monarch mansion built this Zhongzhou City on the abyss and let Zhongzhou return to peace and tranquility." After listening to Yun Yao's explanation, Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "So that's how it is. Now under this Zhongzhou City, there is an abandoned ancient city from the ancient times. However, thousands of years have passed. Didn't that underground abandoned ancient city turn into ruins long ago?" Yun Yao shook her head lightly and explained, "In the ancient times, although that ancient city was not as prosperous as today's Zhongzhou City, it was still the most majestic city under the heavens. Although more than half of that ancient city was destroyed and sunk deep underground, many ancient buildings were still preserved and there were many broken formations protecting it. So far, the abandoned ancient city was still preserved. Many martial artists from all walks of life lived there, and there were also many evil people hiding there. That abandoned ancient city became a place to hide evil. It was full of darkness and murderous aura, so it was called the Underground Dark City. There are several entrances to the Underground Dark City. Black Cloud Alley is one of the entrances. Ji Tianqing roughly understood what kind of place the Underground Dark City was. He asked with a grave expression, since the Underground Dark City is so dark and violent, Yan was captured by Soul Shepherd Hall's people. His situation must be very dangerous. However, why didn't Soul Shepherd Hall's people take him back to Duanmu family's Qingmu city, but instead to the Underground Dark City? Yun Yao frowned and thought for a moment. She said in a low voice, Duanmu family controls half of the medicine business in the Zhongzhou continent. Of course, their power has penetrated the Underground Dark City. I remember that Duanmu family has a shadow palace in the Underground Dark City. It specializes in selling and trading some materials and poisons that are strictly prohibited by the imperial court. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed with a cold light. He said in a cold voice, so, Yan is likely to be captured to the Shadow Palace? What are we waiting for? Let's enter the Underground Dark City now and go to the Shadow Palace to rescue Yan. Yun Yao shook her head gently and said, Tianqing, don't be impatient. Let's wait for the news from the Hidden Cloud Pavilion first. The two continued to wait. Very quickly, another 6 hours passed. So far, the two had been waiting for a whole day. Deacon Li entered the secret room again and reported respectfully, Young Master Ji, the spies have investigated clearly. Yan was indeed captured to the Underground Dark City. He was taken into a dilapidated manor and never appeared again. Chapter 651. The result of Deacon Li's report caused Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao to be stunned for a moment. Yan was captured and brought into a dilapidated manor? He was actually not captured and brought to the Umbra Palace. What exactly does the Duanmu clan want to do? The two of them glanced at each other in confusion, then hurriedly stood up and left the secret room to rush towards Black Cloud Alley. Deacon Li originally wanted to send a team of spies to protect them, but Ji Tianqing refused. The spies of the Hidden Cloud Pavilion are mostly at the 7th or 8th level of the Origin Core stage, and are utterly unable to be of any help. Deacon Li, you only need to send a spy to lead the way for us. Since Ji Tianqing had spoken, Deacon Li naturally did as he was told, and sent a young spy that was astute and agile to lead the way for Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao. The three of them left the Hidden Cloud Pavilion's branch and rushed towards Black Cloud Alley with their fastest speed. After an hour, the three of them arrived at Black Cloud Alley. When Ji Tianqing saw the situation in the alley clearly, he only felt disbelief. This was a dirty and old alley, and both sides of the alley were low earthen houses, tiled houses, and wooden sheds. The ground was full of potholes and was covered in muddy water. Walking in the alley, Ji Tianqing saw over 10 martial artists in ragged clothes that had disheveled hair and collapsed under the eaves of the sheds by the side of the road. There were also a few martial artists that wore tattered armor that walked out from the depths of the alley, and their footsteps were unsteady as they limped through the muddy water. They hadn't even walked close when the stench of alcohol assaulted their nostrils, causing them to raise their eyebrows. These were obviously a few drunkards. Ji Tianqing found it hard to believe that there was actually such a dirty, disorderly, and vile alley in the flourishing central continent city. If it wasn't for Yun Yao telling him that the depths of Black Cloud Alley was the entrance to the underground city, he would truly suspect that he had entered the slums. The three of them calmly and quietly passed through the alley, and after walking for over 1,000 meters, they arrived at the end of Black Cloud Alley. Before them was a low and old house, and the dilapidated door was dyed with dark red bloodstains. There were 2 huge red lanterns hanging at the door, which were still lit with a dim yellow light. Ji Tianqing walked into the house, past the fake mountains and pond in the courtyard, and arrived at the dimly lit hall. A stooped old man in a black robe with white hair and beard silently appeared behind the three of them. "Young man, this is not a place you should be." A low and hoarse voice rang out. It contained an eerie ghostly aura, causing people to feel a chill down their backs. Ji Tianqing turned his head and couldn't help but frown when he saw the appearance of the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man was hunched over. His face was pale and bloodless. He was missing an eye, and there were several hideous sword wounds. His ears were also bald, as if they had been shaved off. Such a stooped old man with skin as dry as tree bark and a terrifying face looked like a mummy that had crawled out of a grave. However, Yun Yao had told Ji Tianqing that this black-robed old man was the legendary ghost servant, one of the gatekeepers of the Dark City. No one knew the ghost servant's cultivation level. He only had an eerie ghostly aura around him, which made him seem unfathomable. However, even a Sky Origin Stage 6 or 7 powerhouse wouldn't dare to act rashly in front of the ghost servant. Senior, we have something to do in the Dark City. Please make an exception. Ji Tianqing bowed to the ghost servant. After explaining the purpose of their visit, he handed over 3 spiritual stones. The ghost servant glanced at Ji Tianqing with his empty eye and grinned with his sparse teeth. Hee hee, little guy, you're quite sensible. He reached out his shriveled hand and took the 3 spiritual stones and put them into his interspatial ring. Then, he led Ji Tianqing and the other 2 out of the hall and walked into a dark secret room. On the floor of the secret room, there was an extremely complicated and mysterious array. When the ghost servant opened the array, an underground passage appeared on the ground. The entrance of the cave was dark and cold. It was obviously leading to the Dark City. Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao and the young secret agent entered the underground passage one by one. They walked along the dark and cold passage and went underground. The passage was winding and it was unknown how far it went underground. Until 2 hours later, when a bridge appeared in front of the passage, there was some light in the surroundings. Ji Tianqing walked to the dark stone bridge and looked around. He couldn't help but reveal a surprised expression. Under his feet was a black arch bridge that was hundreds of meters long. Under the bridge was a large river that was hundreds of meters wide. In the river, there was turbulent black water flowing endlessly, making a rumbling sound. Above his head was a dome that was thousands of meters high. That was the rock layer under the continent's central city. In the distance, there was an empty and dark sky. A dark red moon was floating in the sky, sprinkling down a dim light red light. The earth in the distance was very desolate. There were collapsed city walls, attics and halls, collapsed houses, and huge statues half hidden in the mud. The various scenes that he saw all showed how glorious this abandoned ancient city used to be. Ji Tianqing stood on the arch bridge and looked for a while. Then he crossed the stone bridge. Under the guidance of the young secret agent, he walked into the depths of the Dark City. Along the way, he saw the dilapidated palaces and pavilions in all directions. There were mysterious martial artists coming in and out. Most people acted alone, wearing a wide robe and a cloak that covered their face, hiding their true face. Even if they didn't wear a cloak, they would wear a mask. Everyone was in a hurry and never talked to strangers. Inside those ruined buildings, there were many places for people to trade and sell their wares. While hurrying, Yun Yao said to Ji Tianqing with spiritual sense sound transmission, Tianqing, although the Dark City is gloomy and terrible, full of darkness and violence, there are many experts here. It can be said that there are crouching tigers and hidden dragons. You have to be careful here. Although it is full of a large number of evil and vicious things that are strictly prohibited from circulating, there are also many rare treasures. Some rare treasures often appear. The experts of the major forces in Zhongzhou City will also change their appearance and quietly come here to fish for treasures, or to buy rare materials and so on. On the way, Yun Yao introduced the Dark City to Ji Tianqing in detail. Ji Tianqing remembered her words, thinking that it might be useful in the future. Half an hour later, the young secret agent took the 2 of them to the outside of an ancient and dilapidated manor. This manor covered an area of 2,000 meters. It should have been a magnificent, noble and illustrious mansion. However, the war in ancient times caused half of the mansion to collapse. Many houses and palaces had collapsed, turning into mud and gravel on the ground, revealing pieces of broken fences and walls. The ground paved with black slabs was cracked with numerous gullies, and many piles of gravel were scattered. The whole manor was silent and dark. There was no light at all, like a lifeless dead land. Chapter 652. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao were hiding in a dark corner outside the manor. The 3 of them secretly observed for a while. The manor was still dead silent, and there was no trace of light or shadow. Ji Tianqing was worried about Yan Er's safety, so he decided to take action. He instructed the young secret agent, "You stay here and keep a lookout outside the manor. Be ready to help us at any time." The young secret agent cupped his hands and bowed. He used his spiritual sense to send a voice transmission. After that, Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao restrained their auras and quietly sneaked into the dilapidated manor. They moved towards the depths of the manor. Both of their movements were light and cautious. They did not make any sound. After 15 minutes, both of them passed through the ruins and arrived at the depths of the manor. They arrived outside a huge black palace. This palace was the main hall of the manor. Although the walls were covered with cracks, the entire palace was slightly tilted and looked like it was about to collapse. However, Ji Tianqing detected that this palace was protected by the Heaven Origin Grand Formation, and there were martial artists' auras in the palace. Not only that, but there were also 3 gloomy and dark true origin fluctuations, hidden in a few old houses at the back of the palace. Ji Tianqing turned his head to look at Yun Yao and sent a voice transmission. Yao Yao, there are 4 hidden sentries at the back of the palace. However, they are only at the 8th level of the origin core stage. There's nothing to worry about. Wait for me here for a moment. I'll go and deal with them first before I can break the palace's defensive grand formation. Yun Yao nodded and sent a voice transmission. Tianqing, be careful. Ji Tianqing nodded silently. His figure flashed and flew out. After 2 breaths of time, he moved to the back of the palace and was near a few houses in the ruins. When he got closer, he used his spiritual sense to scan clearly. There were a total of 5 houses that were relatively well preserved, and 4 of them were occupied. The 4 martial artists were wearing black robes. There were soft armor and heart protection mirrors under their robes. They also carried treasured swords, concealed weapons, and crossbows. They were fully equipped. Moreover, the robes of these 4 people were embroidered with the same pattern. Their auras were similarly gloomy and contained the smell of blood. Even though the 4 of them were meditating in the room, they were still on guard at all times. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing frowned slightly as a cold light flashed in his eyes. He thought to himself, looks like these 4 fellows are the assassins of the Soul Shepherd Hall, the ones who captured Yan Er. Relying on his strength, killing 4 8th level origin core stage experts was simply easy. However, it was very difficult to do it without alerting the experts and powerhouses in the palace. Ji Tianqing pondered for a moment and immediately had an idea. Earth Emperor Shield. He muttered in his heart and quietly used his Earth Elemental True Essence to burrow into the ground. He controlled the power of Earth True Essence and quietly moved underground without any hindrance. He was like a fish swimming in water. In a short span of 10 breaths, he swam 100 meters underground and came to the ground of a house. The Soul Shepherd Hall assassin in the house was still meditating on the bed, and didn't notice the approaching danger in the slightest. In the next moment, Ji Tianqing emerged from the wall behind the assassin. He appeared soundlessly like a ghost. At this moment, he was only a step away from the Soul Shepherd Hall assassin. He stretched out his right hand like lightning and grabbed towards the assassin's neck. Crack! Along with the sound of bones shattering, this assassin's neck was instantly broken by Ji Tianqing, and he died on the spot. Until the moment of his death, he still didn't understand what had happened. The assassin's body slowly fell down onto the bed without a sound. Blood was still flowing out from his mouth and nose. And at this moment, Ji Tianqing had already left silently. He moved another 20 steps underground and entered the next room. The black-robed assassin in this room faintly heard a light sound and revealed a puzzled expression. He had just opened his eyes. However, he didn't realize that a person had appeared out of thin air from the dark brown wall behind him. Crack! Another sound of bones shattering was heard. This assassin's neck was also broken by Ji Tianqing. He didn't even have time to scream before he died on the spot. Then, Ji Tianqing sneaked into the 3rd and 4th rooms and assassinated the remaining 2 assassins. Although the 2 assassins were alert, they didn't know what had happened. Before they could react, Ji Tianqing appeared like a ghost and silently took their lives. Ji Tianqing easily took care of the 4 assassins from the Hall of Soul Husbandry without making too much noise. He quietly left the house and returned to Yun Yao's side. Yun Yao quickly asked via voice transmission, Tianqing, have you taken care of them? Ji Tianqing nodded and replied via voice transmission, yes, all 4 Soul Shepherd Hall assassins have been killed. Then, he took Yun Yao and sneaked into the ruins on the side of the palace. He observed the defensive formation silently and thought of a way to break it. After observing for a while, he frowned doubtfully and thought to himself, the defensive formation of this palace isn't a remnant formation from the ancient times. It was set up in recent years. Strange, this is just an ordinary low-grade heaven origin formation. Could it be that the experts in this palace have very ordinary attainments in formations? Ji Tianqing was puzzled and raised his vigilance. He explained the situation to Yun Yao. Then, he performed a secret formation technique and started to break the formation. The low-grade heaven origin formation was very easy for a formation grandmaster like him. It wasn't even worth mentioning. In just a few minutes, he broke a hole in the defensive formation. Swoosh, swoosh. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao went through the hole in the formation and entered the defensive formation. Although the palace had a black iron gate, they didn't go through the gate. They went through the window of one of the rooms on the first floor and directly entered the palace. The interior of the palace was dilapidated and very old. It was full of cracks and piles of gravel and debris. The air was filled with a damp and rotten smell. It was nauseating. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao both had the strength of Heaven Origin Stage. They held their breath and quickly shuttled through the palace, searching for traces of Yen Er. Both of them released their spirit senses to explore the situation around. They didn't miss any room or secret room, even the underground. Not long after, they searched the entire first floor of the palace but found nothing. They just went up to the second floor of the palace and entered a spacious hall. They were about to use their spirit senses to search. At this time, Ji Tianqing suddenly saw 4 statues standing in the 4 dark corners of the hall. Each statue was more than 3 meters tall. They were dark brown all over and the carvings were lifelike. They didn't look like remnants from the ancient times. In terms of appearance, the 4 statues were all of the demon clan. Half of them were like humans and the other half were like eagles. Ji Tianqing stepped toward one of the statues and prepared to observe it closely. However, the statue suddenly moved and opened its eyes, revealing a pair of dark golden bright eyes. Chapter 653. Ji Tianqing saw that the black stone on the surface of the statue was cracking and falling to the floor. In just a few breaths, the statue completely shattered, revealing a 3-meter-tall harpy with a robust and powerful body. This demon had the head of a human and the body of an eagle. It had the wings and sharp claws of an eagle, but it also had a pair of arms similar to that of a human. It stared down at Ji Tianqing with an evil sneer in its golden eyes. "Human kid, how dare you break into the Wandering Soul's fortress and disturb our sleep? You are courting death." The harpies opened their sharp beaks and spoke the human language with a strange accent. At the same time, the other 3 statues in the corner of the hall cracked and showed 3 harpies with the same fierce vibes. The 4 harpies stared at Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao coldly, slowly approaching the center of the hall. Yun Yao was holding the cold moon sword, standing side by side with Ji Tianqing, looking around alertly. "Tianqing, this is the Golden Eye Winged Man. It is fast and powerful. It is good at fighting. It is said that this race was wiped out 1,000 years ago. There are only a few Golden Eye Winged Men left. I didn't expect to see 4 of them here." "Golden Eye Winged Men?" Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and casually said, "They are just 4 Sky Origin Stage Level 2 beasts. What is there to be afraid of?" He coldly stared at the Golden Eye Winged Man and asked, 2 days ago, did the Hall of Soul Husbandry catch a human boy and keep him here?" The Golden Eye Winged Man showed a mocking look. "Kid, what is the Hall of Soul Husbandry? I have never heard of it. As for the human boy, I have eaten him long ago. He was delicious. Since you 2 are here, I am going to have a good meal today. TSK, TSK. Although Ji Tianqing could tell that the golden-eyed winged being was lying, he was still enraged. A cold killing intent flashed in his eyes. "You are courting death." Ji Tianqing shouted and suddenly waved his hand to shoot out a fiery sword light toward the golden-eye winged man. Red Dragon Flash. The 10-meter-long fiery sword light lit up the spacious hall like a fiery dragon. It was about to hit the golden-eye winged man. The golden-eye winged man's pupils shrank. His body was covered with golden light, and he quickly dodged aside. However, no matter how fast he was not as fast as Ji Tianqing's Red Dragon Flash. Bang! With a muffled sound, Crimson Dragon Flash pierced through the chest of the golden-eyed winged man, shattering his heart and internal organs. Its 3-meter-tall body exploded into pieces of flesh and blood, scattering in the corner of the hall. Suddenly, the air smelled blood of the golden eye. The other 3 golden-eyed winged beings were smirking coldly, thinking about how to torture Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao. Suddenly, they saw that their companion had been killed by a sword strike. The 3 of them were stunned, and their golden eyes were filled with horror. Seizing the opportunity, Ji Tianqing used the Golden Emperor Slash and charged toward the other golden-eyed winged man with unparalleled ferocity. Yun Yao also waved her Cold Moon Sword and used the Heavenly Star 5 swords. She slashed out 5 huge sword lights and attacked the golden-eye winged man on the left. The 3 golden-eye winged men finally came back to their senses and roared angrily. They flapped their wings and used a secret technique. They shot out sharp blades of light and shadow to block the attacks of the 2 people. The saber lights and sword shadows of the 2 sides clashed fiercely, creating a loud rumbling sound that reverberated in the hall. An incomparably violent shockwave fiercely struck the hall, causing huge cracks to appear on the ground and walls. The entire palace also shook violently. Ji Tianqing's golden eye slash was unstoppable. It cut through all obstacles and hit a golden eye winged man. That golden eye winged man was cut in half by the giant sword. His body and blood scattered on the ground. The remaining 2 golden eye winged men were scared out of their wits by Ji Tianqing's power. They attacked twice symbolically and then retreated in a hurry. They wanted to escape from the hall. However, Ji Tianqing was determined to kill them. How could he let them escape? Water split. He released a huge sword light that was more than 10 meters long and killed a golden eye winged man on the spot. He also smashed the entire wall of the hall. Yun Yao also used the moonlight essence. She slashed out a crescent-shaped light blade and killed another golden eye winged man on the spot. In the blink of an eye, all 4 golden eye winged men were killed. The hall was also torn apart. The whole palace was on the verge of collapse. Huge rocks kept falling down. These 4 golden eye winged men are only guards. There's an even stronger mastermind behind them. They've surely been alarmed now. We have to make the best use of our time and search separately now so as to avoid any mishaps happening to Yen. Ji Tianqing was anxious in his heart and instructed Yun Yao via voice transmission. The 2 of them hurriedly left the damaged hall and moved swiftly like a gust of wind on the 2nd floor of the palace as they released their spiritual sense to search for Yen Er's whereabouts. The 2 of them acted separately and spent 100 breaths of time to search all the 100+ rooms on the 2nd floor of the palace. However, they were unable to find Yen Er. Thus, the 2 of them hurriedly rushed up to the 3rd floor of the palace. This floor was obviously a secret place of the palace. There were only a mere 10+ rooms and 2 secret rooms. Every room and secret room was extremely spacious. Moreover, a defensive grand formation was set up, and there were even a few human martial artists acting as guards. However, those human martial artists only had a strength at the 8th or 9th level of the origin core stage. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao used some tricks and only used 3 to 5 moves to instantly kill the guards. After they killed all the guards, the 2 of them hurriedly started searching. The defensive grand formations of the various rooms and secret rooms were capable of obstructing the detection of spiritual sense, causing their searching speed to become extremely slow. Right when the 2 of them were patiently breaking open the formation, Ji Tianqing suddenly sensed that a gloomy and obscure formidable aura was silently fleeing the palace and flying towards the outside. Want to flee? His brows raised as he emitted a cold shout, and then his figure flashed out of the palace and chased out. Swoosh! He transformed into a golden flowing light that smashed open an enormous hole in the palace wall before flying into the dim and lightless night sky. He raised his head to look ahead and saw a thin figure in a black robe carrying a little boy as it flew swiftly in the night sky 200 meters away. Bastard! Where do you think you're going? Ji Tianqing shouted out furiously with a murderous aura, and then he exploded out with vast true essence as he chased after the figure like a flowing light. Swish! In the blink of an eye, he'd caught up to the black-robed figure and stopped the black-robed figure in the sky above the ruins of the manor. Meanwhile, Ji Tianqing saw clearly that the black-robed figure was a thin and slovenly old man. His disheveled long hair covered half of his face and only revealed a pair of eyes that flickered with flames. Chapter 654. Yen Er was in a coma. His breath was very weak, and his handsome face was as pale as paper. His white robe was stained with dark red blood, and there were several obvious wounds on his body, so deep that his bones could be seen. Apparently, Yen Er had fought fiercely with the assassins of the Hall of Soul before he was captured. At this moment, Yun Yao had also arrived. She stood 100 meters behind the black-robed old man and surrounded him with Ji Tianqing. She also saw Yen Er, who was seriously injured and unconscious. Her face turned cold as ice. In their minds, Yen Er's life had been rough, and he had endured a lot of hardships, which made them feel sorry for him. At this moment, when they saw Yen Er was seriously injured, they were furious, and a strong murderous intent burst out from their bodies. Ji Tianqing stared at the black-robed old man coldly and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you? Why do you want to capture Yen Er?" The black-robed old man stared at Ji Tianqing and said in a deep and hoarse voice, "Kid, This is between me and him. It has nothing to do with you. If you don't want to die, get out of my way. Ji Tianqing thought that the black-robed old man had asked the assassins of the Hall of Soul to capture Yen to deal with him. But he didn't expect that the black-robed old man had a personal grudge against Yen At this moment, Yun Yao pointed her sword at the black-robed old man and shouted angrily, "Nonsense! Yen is only 11 years old. He has never been in the martial world. How could he be your enemy?" Yen was only 11 years old, while the black-robed old man was old. It was impossible for them to have a grudge against each other. The black-robed old man didn't explain much. His eyes flashed with spiritual fire, and he asked in a deep and cold voice, "It seems that you two are determined to be my enemy. If so, I will fulfill your wish and send you both to heaven." Ji Tianqing's murderous intent burst out from his body. He sneered contemptuously, "You are just an old cripple in the 5th level of Sky Origin stage. How dare you be so arrogant? Hand over my junior, or I will make sure you die without a burial place." As he spoke, the true essence in his body accelerated, quickly accumulating strength, and his aura became extremely overbearing and tyrannical. The black-robed old man sneered, grabbed Yen and threw him into the distant night sky. The unconscious Yen cut through the night sky and fell toward the ruins 1,000 meters away. Shwa! Seeing this, Yun Yao rushed over without hesitation, wanting to catch Yen before he fell to the ground. At this moment, a gloomy killing intent flashed through the black-robed old man's eyes. He suddenly drew a black curved blade and slashed 3 black blade lights at Yun Yao. Die! The pitch-black scimitar gave off an ancient aura. It was obviously not an ordinary item. 3 pitch-black saber lights that were 30 meters long and contained a dense aura of death silently streaked across the night sky and were about to slash Yun Yao. Yun Yao sensed that something was wrong, but it was too late to dodge. The 3 pitch-black saber lights shrouded her figure and were about to kill her. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing, who had been ready for a long time, rushed to Yun Yao's side in a flash. He stood in front of Yun Yao and used the Golden Rock Wings fusion technique, using his golden wings to block the saber light descending from the sky. Bang! 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 The huge saber light slashed the golden wings, producing a deafening muffled sound. The violent shock wave sent Yun Yao flying backward and she fell to the ground with Yen Ji Tianqing was unscathed. He roared with a murderous aura and rushed toward the black-robed old man. Golden Slash! In anger, he used his killer move with all his strength. He released a giant golden sword that was 100 meters long and slashed toward the black-robed old man with a force that could split heaven and earth. As soon as the giant golden sword appeared, its dazzling brilliance illuminated the entire manor. The dark brown earth and ruins were also illuminated to the finest detail. The dazzling golden light also clearly reflected the horror in the black-robed old man's eyes. He obviously did not expect that Ji Tianqing, who looked only 18 or 19 years old, could perform such a terrifying sword technique. At this critical moment, the black-robed old man put away his black saber and flipped his palm. A simple and mottled bronze cauldron appeared out of thin air. Cauldron stabilizes heaven and earth. The black-robed old man activated his majestic vital essence and poured it into the cauldron. Suddenly, the bronze cauldron expanded to the size of a house and enveloped him. A vigorous and vast aura burst out from the cauldron, causing Ji Tianqing to feel an ancient and boundless aura. Clang! In the earth-shattering sound, the giant golden sword slashed the bronze cauldron. Suddenly, the bronze cauldron fell from the sky and smashed into the dilapidated manor, creating a deep pit with a radius of 1,000 meters. The giant golden sword also exploded with a bang, bursting out a shock wave like a torrent of golden light, sweeping in all directions. The entire manor was destroyed. The broken walls and brick ruins were blasted into dust by the shock wave. Fortunately, Yun Yao had fled the manor with Yen and hid in the ruins a few miles away, blocking the bombardment of the shock wave. In the deep pit, a huge crack appeared on the surface of the bronze cauldron. Raging red flames were constantly emerging from the crack. Ji Tianqing flew above the deep pit and looked down at the bronze cauldron. He was about to perform his unique skill again. Although this bronze cauldron was an ancient treasure, it was a top Tianyuan level treasure and could be called a magic tool. However, this bronze cauldron was too old and dilapidated, and its power was very weak. Ji Tianqing would be able to break the cauldron if he slashed a few more times. At this moment, the cauldron suddenly shrank thousands of times, and the black-robed old man's figure appeared again. He was safe and sound, but his eyes were a little ferocious and crazy. "You despicable little bastard. You actually destroyed this old man's treasure. I'm going to kill you and use your flesh and blood to feed the spiritual snake." The black-robed old man cursed in a vicious tone. He quickly put away the bronze cauldron and waved his hand to shoot out a red flame. Swoosh! The crimson flame flew into the night sky and immediately expanded countless times in size. Suddenly, a colorful spiritual snake of flame appeared. It flew rapidly in the night sky and rushed toward Ji Tianqing. The spiritual snake of flame was hundreds of meters long. It was like a divine dragon of flame. It was surrounded by monstrous flames and exuded a terrifying heat. The air in all directions was burned clean by the high temperature. The area within a radius of 1,000 meters became a vacuum. The broken walls and brick ruins on the ground were burned red and turned into dark red magma. As the spiritual snake of flame flew, the dark red magma on the ground also flew into the sky. It condensed into pillars of magma and blasted toward Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing sensed the terrifying power of the spiritual snake of flame. He frowned and his eyes became serious. Is this a treasure or a demonic beast? There are 9 different colors of flames? This huge dragon-like spiritual snake of flame was neither a magic weapon nor a demonic beast. It was a flame with intelligence. Chapter 655. The 9-flame spiritual snake pierced through the night sky at lightning speed and pounced on Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing made a prompt decision to use his ultimate skill. He released black water that blotted out the sky and blasted it toward the 9-flame spiritual snake. Black water rope. The majestic power of the black water condensed into a black water column that was 100 meters long. It was like a dark and cold divine dragon. Water could counter fire. The black water was the essence of the water element and was more powerful. Boom! In the deafening sound, the black water rope and the 9-flame spiritual snake collided and created a shockwave that swept across the sky. The sky was filled with black water and flames of various colors, splashing in all directions. Water and fire were incompatible. The two forces canceled each other out and quickly collapsed. In just 2 breaths, the black water rope collapsed and disappeared completely. The huge 9-flame spiritual snake had also shrunk a few times. It was only a dozen meters long. Even the 9 colored flames that were flickering all over its body had dimmed significantly. However, before Ji Tianqing could heave a sigh of relief, more than 10 dark red magma columns blasted toward him with violent power. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Each pillar of magma was as large as a dragon, containing the power to destroy heaven and earth. Ji Tianqing was surrounded by lava pillars from all directions. There was nowhere for him to hide, and there was no way for him to escape. At this critical moment, he folded his golden wings without hesitation. Golden rock wings fusion. A pair of large golden wings wrapped around him, protecting his body tightly. Boom, boom, boom. A total of 16 magma columns blasted the golden wings and instantly drowned Ji Tianqing's figure. At that moment, flames rose in the sky and magma splashed. It was as if a bright red sun had lit up the sky and lit up the surrounding 10 miles. The black-robed elder widened his eyes and stared at the flames and magma in the sky. His eyes were filled with anticipation. In his opinion, Ji Tianqing would definitely be injured on the spot after being blasted by the magma columns. However, the black-robed elder immediately saw Ji Tianqing's figure when the magma rain fell from the sky. Ji Tianqing was standing in the sky, unscathed. He was looking at him coldly, and his entire body was surging with a strong murderous intent. Metal slash! Ji Tianqing roared angrily and released a 100-meter-long golden sword light that slashed toward the black-robed old man. The giant golden sword tore through the night sky at lightning speed, containing an extremely domineering and fierce aura. The black-robed old man had seen the power of this sword technique. Even the bronze pill cauldron had a huge crack. When he saw the giant golden sword coming at him, his expression immediately changed, revealing a look of intense fear. At the critical moment, he formed a mysterious seal with both of his hands. He activated his majestic power and shot out a crimson flame into the 9-flame spiritual snake. Instantly, the 9-flame spiritual snake's body expanded once again, returning to 100 meters long. Spiritual snake protection. As the black-robed old man shouted in a low voice, the giant 9-flame spiritual snake wrapped around him and flew rapidly. The 9-flame spiritual snake's huge body wrapped around him a few times, protecting him very well. The next moment, the giant golden sword slashed the 9-flame spiritual snake's body violently, creating a loud and dull sound. Boom! The giant golden sword collapsed on the spot, bursting into golden light fragments that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. The 9-flame spiritual snake and the black-robed old man were both sent flying backward. They drew an arc in the night sky and fell toward the ruins below. Moreover, the 9-flame spiritual snake was severely injured. Its body shrunk again, and it let out a sorrowful cry. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing immediately frowned and a tinge of surprise flashed in his eyes. This 9-flame spiritual snake is a bit strange. It can block my killing moves time and time again. Ji Tianqing could tell that although the 9-flame spiritual snake was not a celestial artifact, its power and effects were better than a celestial artifact. It must be the black-robed old man's trump card. An idea popped up in his mind. He wanted to capture the 9-flame spiritual snake and study it carefully. It seemed that the 9-flame spiritual snake and the black-robed old man were about to fall into the ruins below. Just as they were about to hit the ground, the 9-flame spiritual snake stopped falling. It stretched out its huge body and caught the black-robed old man. Swoosh! With a flash of fire, the 9-flame spiritual snake flew back into the sky with the black-robed old man on its back. However, the black-robed old man had already seen Ji Tianqing's strength and means. He no longer had any intention to fight. He did not want to be entangled with Ji Tianqing. He stepped on the 9-flame spiritual snake and ran away as fast as a shooting star. You still want to run away? In your dreams! Ji Tianqing shouted with a murderous intent and chased after the old man without hesitation. Swoosh! He turned into a golden shooting star and pierced through the night sky like a sharp sword, making a sharp air-rending sound. In just 20 breaths' time, Ji Tianqing caught up with the 9-flame spiritual snake. He only hesitated for a moment before he activated the sword embryo in his abdomen. It turned into a huge golden sword and charged toward the black-robed old man. Sword of Judgment. The huge golden sword was 30 meters long and had a pair of wings formed by golden light. It contained an unstoppable aura that could pierce through everything. When the black-robed old man saw the Sword of Judgment coming toward him, his face changed drastically. His eyes were filled with horror. He could clearly feel that the power of the Sword of Judgment was more than twice the power of the golden slash. If he used the 9-flame spiritual snake to block it, the spiritual snake would most likely be smashed into pieces. At this critical moment, the black-robed old man took out the green bronze crucible without hesitation. Go, Universal Crucible! He shouted and injected his true core power into the green bronze crucible. The green bronze crucible expanded by 1,000 times. Then, he controlled the green bronze crucible and smashed it toward Ji Tianqing. In the next moment, the Sword of Judgment and the green bronze crucible collided in the sky and there was a deafening explosion. Dang! How powerful was the Sword of Judgment? The green bronze crucible, which was the size of a house, was smashed into pieces by the Sword of Judgment. It exploded into 48,000 pieces and scattered in all directions. The green bronze crucible, which was a top heaven's origin artifact, was smashed into pieces by Ji Tianqing's sword. The deafening explosion and violent shockwaves, mixed with the countless pieces of the green bronze crucible, swept across the area with a radius of a few thousand meters. When the black-robed old man saw the green bronze crucible being destroyed, he was heartbroken. However, no matter how precious the green bronze crucible was, it was not as important as the 9-flame spiritual snake. He sacrificed the green bronze crucible to block Ji Tianqing's killing move. He had achieved his goal. When the green bronze crucible was smashed into pieces, he had already ridden the 9-flame spiritual snake and escaped into the distance. The Sword of Judgment had also consumed a lot of energy, and its radiance had dimmed. Swoosh! The giant sword lost its dazzling radiance and suddenly shrunk countless times. It flew back to Ji Tianqing and went back into his stomach. Ji Tianqing looked at the sky in front of him. When he saw the black-robed old man flying away on the 9-flame spiritual snake, he went all out to pursue him. Chapter 656. Ji Tianqing and the black-robed old man, two people, flew across the night sky one after the other. Their speed was as fast as lightning. The movement of the two people fighting was too big. Not only did it destroy the entire manor, but it also emitted a deafening loud noise and lit up a monstrous fire. With the manor as the center, the martial artists within a radius of 10 miles were all alarmed. From the many ruins and houses around, at least several dozen figures flew out. Most of them were Origin Core Realm and Heavenly Origin Realm powerhouses. Numerous invisible spiritual senses spread out, quietly probing the situation on the battlefield. There were also many powerhouses secretly staring at Ji Tianqing and the black-robed old man in the sky. In the underground dark city, order was chaotic, full of blood and slaughter. There would be martial artists fighting every day. A battle could break out any time and anywhere. Everyone had long been used to it. Therefore, those alarmed powerhouses just hid in the dark to observe. No one showed up to intervene in this matter. Furthermore, everyone could detect that Ji Tianqing and the black-robed old man were both heavenly origin powerhouses with extraordinary strength. Ordinary people did not have the qualifications to intervene in the two of them at all. Ji Tianqing chased after the black-robed old man and soon left the manor ruins, flying towards the depths of the underground dark city. Yun Yao brought the seriously injured and unconscious Yen Er and hurriedly followed up. However, her speed was much slower. She only chased out for a short distance and already lost him. In desperation, she could only stop chasing and brought Yen Er to the exit of the underground dark city, preparing to leave the dark city. Ji Tianqing chased after the black-robed old man and entered the depths of the dark city not long after. The surrounding houses and buildings became denser and denser. Most of the buildings were well preserved. There were also many rebuilt houses and palaces. Under the dim curtain of night, many houses and buildings were lit up with lights. There were also many chaotic martial artist auras, as well as noisy noises. At this time, the black-robed old man descended from the sky and drilled into an old house and street. Ji Tianqing chased after without thinking, using spiritual senses to search for traces of the black-robed old man. However, the black-robed old man was very familiar with the environment and terrain of the underground dark city. He entered the old streets and alleys, scurrying around like a rat in a tunnel. His whereabouts also became erratic, making it hard for people to catch him. Ji Tianqing tried his best to follow closely, but after passing through 3 streets, he could no longer find any trace of the black-robed old man. He released his invisible spiritual sense to cover an area with a radius of 500 meters. He carefully searched for the black-robed old man's aura, not even letting go of the corners and the underground. However, after searching half the street, he couldn't find any clues and completely lost them. This result made his face gloomy, and he murmured angrily, "Damn old thing, relying on his familiarity with the underground city. He actually got rid of me." No way, after all, he entered the underground dark city for the first time, and his eyes were completely black. The black-robed old man had obviously lived in the dark city for many years and knew every street and corner like the back of his hand. Ji Tianqing stood outside a palace at the end of the street. His brows were tightly furrowed as killing intent flashed in his eyes. "The next time I meet him, I absolutely won't let him escape," he muttered with a heart full of resentment, and was about to turn around and leave. But right at this moment, 4 figures abruptly rushed out from the black palace behind him, arriving at his side swiftly like lightning. Swish! 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 4 human martial artists wearing black armor drew their swords and sabers one after another, surrounding him. Ji Tianqing frowned, and his gaze coldly glanced at the 4 martial artists. He saw that these 4 human martial artists all had strength around the 8th level of the Origin Core stage. They wore standard armor and seemed to be the guards of the palace. One of the martial artists with a tall and sturdy figure stared at him with a ghastly gaze and shouted in a deep voice, "Who are you, to actually dare use your spiritual sense to spy on our Dark Shadow Palace?" Hearing this person's words, Ji Tianqing's brows instantly raised, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. Dark Shadow Palace? This is the Dark Shadow Palace? Earlier, he chased the black-robed old man here and completely lost his aura and clues. He had indeed used his spiritual sense to investigate the situation within the palace, searching for the black-robed old man's whereabouts. However, he was unable to find traces of the black-robed old man, and only detected that there were over 100 martial artists living within the palace. Those martial artists were mostly Origin Core stage experts, and there were even a few Sky Origin stage experts holding down the fort. Ji Tianqing didn't know where this palace was, and was just about to turn around and leave. Unexpectedly, the 4 guards rushed out and surrounded him, allowing him to know that this palace was the Dark Shadow Palace. Ji Tianqing was rather surprised, and his face revealed a playful sneer. No wonder that old cripple's aura vanished when he fled here. Looks like he's most likely hiding within the Dark Shadow Palace. The 4 armored guards didn't notice Ji Tianqing's abnormality. The person in the lead still had an icy cold gaze, and he furiously shouted with a murderous aura. "Speak quickly. What exactly do you want to do by spying on the secrets of the Dark Shadow Palace with ill intentions?" Ji Tianqing didn't answer his question, and instead asked, "Is this Dark Shadow Palace the property of the Duanmu family?" The 4 guards' faces changed, and a cold light flashed across the leader's eyes, and he shouted in a deep voice, "You thief, you really have ulterior motives. Take him down." Following the leader's cold shout, the 4 of them waved their swords, and a dazzling sword light slashed towards Ji Tianqing. "Humph! Seeking your own death." Ji Tianqing coldly laughed, and a cold murderous intent flashed across his eyes. He turned a blind eye to the sword light slashing towards him from all directions, and as fast as a flash of light, he waved his hands and shot out 4 golden sword lights. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The sharp sword light flashed wildly, and in an instant, it slashed across the necks of the 4 guards, causing blood to splatter everywhere. The bodies of the 4 guards instantly froze, and they stopped waving their swords. Their hands clutched their throats, and their eyes widened in horror. Their attacks were easily dodged by Ji Tianqing. Their attacks landed on the ancient black stone ground and produced muffled sounds of bang 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 bang. A moment later, the 4 of them were dead, and they fell to the ground with a plop plop, and no longer made a sound. At this time, Ji Tianqing had already walked to the entrance of the Dark Shadow Palace, and he lifted his foot to kick the heavy stone door that was 10 meters tall. Bam! In the deafening sound, the black stone door that weighed tens of thousands of kilograms was kicked down by his foot, and it fell to the ground in pieces, causing the entire palace to shake non-stop. The martial artists in the Dark Shadow Palace were immediately alerted, and a large group of guards in black armor rushed over as fast as the wind. "Who is it? How dare you trespass into the Dark Shadow Palace? You're courting death. How dare you cause trouble in the Dark Shadow Palace? You must be tired of living. Cut the crap, kill him. Attack together." The first dozen guards to reach the entrance roared with murderous intent, and immediately waved their swords and sabers at Ji Tianqing, launching a siege. Chapter 657. Before entering the underground Dark City, Yun Yao told Ji Tianqing before that the Dark Shadow Palace was the Duanmu family's property. For the black-robed old man to be able to instruct the Soul Shepherd Hall's assassins to capture Yen he must have some connection with the Duanmu family. Furthermore, he disappeared when he escaped to the vicinity of the Dark Shadow Palace. Ji Tianqing had reason to believe that he most likely hid in the Dark Shadow Palace. Therefore, Ji Tianqing wanted to go on a killing spree. Even if he could not find the black-robed old man, he would also destroy the Dark Shadow Palace. When over a dozen Origin Core Realm guards rushed over, Ji Tianqing revolved his majestic True Essence, condensing it into a True Essence shield, protecting himself. Bang! 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 Several dozen blade lights and sword shadows slashed onto him, but they were all blocked by the True Essence shield. He waved both palms, his 10 fingers flicking repeatedly, continuously shooting out beams of golden sword light, charging towards the black-armored guards around him. Whoosh! 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 Countless sword lights shot out in unison, emitting a sharp ear-piercing sound of tearing through the air, bringing along puffs of dark red blood flowers. One black-armored guard after another had their throats or hearts pierced by the golden sword light, falling to the ground on the spot, unable to get up. No one could stop Ji Tianqing's charge, let alone block the golden sword light that he released. After a short few breaths, over a dozen guards around him were all killed on the spot. Over a dozen corpses were lying on the ground in disarray, causing the hall to be filled with a thick stench of blood. But Ji Tianqing was completely unscathed. His entire body was not even stained with blood. He strode across the vast hall and walked towards the depths of the Dark Shadow Palace. Black-armored guards constantly rushed out from all around. There were even quite a few guard captains and deacons who also rushed over to surround and kill him. But no one could stop his footsteps. Origin Core Realm experts, no matter how many came, they would all die without a doubt. When Ji Tianqing passed through the hall on the first floor and charged to the second floor of the Dark Shadow Palace, over 30 corpses had already fallen behind him. The hall and the surrounding walls were also slashed with many holes by the blade lights and sword lights, splitting open a series of enormous cracks. Finally, when Ji Tianqing reached the hall on the second floor, he was stopped by several experts. In the brightly lit hall, there were 4 Sky Origin stage cultivators. The leader was an old man in a purple robe. He was the manager of the Dark Shadow Palace. He was at the 5th level of the Sky Origin stage. There were 3 middle-aged men standing behind him. They were wearing long robes with embroidered patterns. They were the leaders of the Dark Shadow Palace. They were all at the 3rd level of the Sky Origin stage. Besides that, there were over 10 Yuan Dan stage guards and deacons in the surroundings of the hall, all of them on alert as they stared at Ji Tianqing with eyes filled with killing intent. Ji Tianqing stepped into the hall and stopped 100 steps away from the purple-robed elder. His gaze swept across the 4 Heaven Yuan experts and the dozen or so Yuan Dan experts around him. Then, he secretly released his spiritual consciousness to explore every corner of the Dark Shadow Palace, searching for traces of the black-robed elder. The purple-robed elder's face was extremely gloomy. His eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Seeing Ji Tianqing's fearless attitude, the fury in his heart burned even more. He shouted angrily in a deep voice, "Kid, who are you? Don't you know where the Dark Shadow Palace is? How dare you barge into the Dark Shadow Palace and start a massacre? How dare you? No matter how powerful you are, no matter who your backer is, you will die today." Ji Tianqing looked at the purple-robed elder emotionlessly and said indifferently, "Of course I know where this place is. Otherwise, why would I barge in? I'll give you a chance to live. Hand over the old cripple who just hid in here and I'll spare your lives." Hearing this, the purple-robed elder was so angry that he laughed. "Ha ha ha, did I hear it wrong? Little bastard, you barged into the Dark Shadow Palace alone and you're about to be killed. How dare you be so arrogant? Even if you kneel down and beg for mercy, I won't let you go. Today, I'll chop you into pieces and feed you to the dogs." With that, the purple-robed elder waved his hand and gave the order. "Kill him." The dozens of Yuan Dan experts around the hall all charged towards Ji Tianqing with murderous intent. Everyone waved their swords and sabers, slashing out an overwhelming amount of sword and saber light, enveloping Ji Tianqing's figure. In a split second, the wide hall with a radius of 100 meters was filled with fierce and domineering saber energy and sword intent, causing a violent hurricane to blow. Ji Tianqing was in the center of the hurricane. His entire body lit up with a dazzling light, condensing into an oval-shaped shield. Saber lights and sword shadows that blotted out the sky and covered the earth slashed at his true essence shield, but they were unable to harm him at all. The saber light and sword light were all shattered into pieces and scattered in all directions, hitting the walls and the ground, blasting out numerous holes and cracks. Ji Tianqing's palm flashed, and the black dragon sword appeared out of thin air. Dragon soars from the 9 heavens. He brazenly drew his sword and slashed out a 30-meter-long Frost Divine Dragon. Roar! The Frost Divine Dragon let out an earth-shattering roar and instantly broke through the blockade of saber light and sword light, blasting a few Yuan Dan experts into pieces. The Frost Divine Dragon did not blast towards the walls of the hall. Instead, it circled around Ji Tianqing and charged around the hall. Bam! 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 Wherever the Frost Divine Dragon passed, all the saber light and sword light were shattered, and the dozens of Yuan Dan experts were sent flying. Everyone was sent flying, crashing heavily into the walls of the hall, making a series of dull thuds. When they landed on the ground, all of them were bleeding from all 7 orifices. Their bodies twisted and fell to the ground. 12 experts were killed on the spot, turning into bloody corpses and no longer making a sound. The few lucky survivors were still breathing, but they were also severely injured. Their bodies twitched as they screamed in pain. In the blink of an eye, the hall became a scene of devastation, a complete mess. The ground and walls were filled with cracks, and huge rocks kept falling from the roof, smashing into the hall. Smoke and dust filled the hall, and it was filled with a thick smell of blood. The only people who were still standing were Ji Tianqing, the purple-robed elder, and the 3 leaders. The 5 of them were all Sky Origin experts. When the 4 powerhouses saw Ji Tianqing kill more than a dozen powerhouses with a single move, their eyes widened in shock. The purple-robed elder was both furious and shocked. His hands in his sleeves were trembling. All these years, he had been in charge of the Dark Shadow Palace. With the Duanmu family as his backing, no one dared to provoke him, and no one dared to cause trouble in the Dark Shadow Palace. He had been a tyrant for many years, enjoying all the glory and wealth. It had been many years since he had personally fought a battle. He did not expect to meet such a ruthless person like Ji Tianqing today. Not only did Ji Tianqing start a massacre in the Dark Shadow Palace, he was also so powerful. The purple-robed elder took a deep breath and calmed down, temporarily suppressing his anger. He frowned and said in a low voice, "Kid, who are you? How dare you go against the Duanmu family?" Chapter 658. Obviously, the purple-robed elder was afraid of Ji Tianqing's terrifying strength and had no choice but to calm down. He knew that he could not stop Ji Tianqing. If they fought, the Dark Shadow Palace would be implicated. Therefore, he hurriedly used the Duanmu family as his backing, hoping to intimidate Ji Tianqing and temporarily stabilize him. As long as he could stall for time, the surviving guards and attendants of the Dark Shadow Palace would send the news to Central State City and report it to the Duanmu family. In at most 4 to 6 hours, Central State City would send experts as reinforcements. At that time, Ji Tianqing would not be able to escape even if he had wings and would definitely die. However, the purple-robed elder's plan was completely useless against Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing was not afraid of the Duanmu family's power at all. He sneered, "Leave a way out? What a joke." When the Dark Shadow Palace killed people, did they think of this sentence? Also, didn't you just say that no matter what, you would tear me into pieces and no one would be able to save me? Since that's the case, why are you still talking nonsense? Ji Tianqing of course could guess the purple-robed elder's thoughts. He also knew that he could not stay in the Dark Shadow Palace for long and had to end the battle quickly. If he dragged on for too long, at most 4 to 6 hours, the Duanmu family's experts would arrive as reinforcements. Therefore, he had to destroy the Dark Shadow Palace as fast as lightning. Die! Ji Tianqing coldly shouted and brazenly waved his sword, sending out 4 dazzling sword radiances, fiercely chopping towards the purple-robed elder and the 3 elders. The 4 of them did not expect him to be so arrogant, not caring about the Duanmu family's prestige and ruthlessly attacking. When the 10-meter-long golden sword slashed over, the 4 of them revealed looks of grief and indignation. They roared with killing intent as they launched a counterattack. "Brat, you're courting death. Reckless thing. I'll fight it out with you. Since you're so eager to die, I'll fulfill your wish. I'll cut you into 8 pieces and grind your bones to dust." The purple-robed elder and the 3 leaders brandished their swords and sabers in unison, displaying their unique saber and sword techniques. They slashed out overwhelming saber light and sword shadows to block Ji Tianqing's attacks. Numerous saber lights and sword lights collided with each other, causing muffled pong-pong-pong-pong sounds to reverberate intensely in the hall. The violent force exploded, causing the entire Umbra Palace to tremble incessantly. The hall was immediately torn apart. The surrounding walls were shattered and collapsed with a loud bang. The roof also collapsed, turning into countless pieces of rubble and dust, falling down with a rumbling sound. In just a few breaths of time, more than half of the Shadow Palace had collapsed. Even with the protection of the formation, it was useless. Although the purple-robed elder and the 3 leaders managed to block the attack of the giant golden sword, they were still sent flying. Swish! Swish! The 4 of them passed through the smoke and dust and flew into the night sky outside the Shadow Palace. At the same time, Ji Tianqing also rushed out. He flew to the top of the Shadow Palace and performed an ultimate sword technique. "Shatter the mountains and rivers!" he shouted coldly. His figure flashed in the night sky like a flash of light, constantly waving his palms to release huge golden sword light. Swish! 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 In the blink of an eye, the night sky within a radius of 1,000 meters was covered by thousands of giant golden swords. The golden light was blinding and chaotic. Thousands of sword light covered the entire Shadow Palace, like a huge sword formation. In the next moment, Ji Tianqing detonated all the giant golden swords at the same time. Thousands of sword light exploded at the same time, erupting with destructive power. Boom! In the deafening explosion, the area within a radius of 1,000 meters was drowned in golden flames, like a huge golden sun. The night sky of this region, the towering Shadow Palace, and the surrounding houses and buildings were instantly shattered into pieces, turning into dust that filled the sky. There were still dozens of cultivators in the Dark Shadow Palace who did not manage to escape. There were also countless spirit stones, pills, and rare treasures that had been destroyed by this explosion, turning into ashes. Even the purple-robed elder and the 3 leaders who were further away were severely injured by the violent shockwave and vomited blood. They hurriedly retreated 1,000 meters away. The terrifying explosive power could really shatter mountains and rivers and destroy everything. After a while, when the dazzling golden light dissipated and the explosion in the night sky stopped, the world finally calmed down. The towering Shadow Palace disappeared, leaving behind a huge crater with a radius of a few hundred meters. Around the crater, there were many gullies and piles of gravel. The purple-robed elder and the three leaders flew back into the night sky. When they saw this shocking scene, they were stunned, crying as if they had lost their parents. It's over. The Shadow Palace is completely destroyed. The main family gave us control of the Shadow Palace. Now that the Shadow Palace is in ruins, we can't escape the blame. The main family will definitely kill us. If the main family wants to kill us, we will die even if we run to the ends of the earth. Since we are going to die either way, let's fight it out with that kid. Yes. If we can kill him, we might be able to atone for our crimes. The four of them exchanged a few words and immediately made up their minds to kill Ji Tianqing even if they had to die. However, just as they held their weapons and looked around for Ji Tianqing appeared behind them like a ghost in the night sky. Burning sky palm. Ji Tianqing roared in his heart. He raised his magma-like left arm and fiercely slapped out a gigantic flaming palm that blotted out the sky. When the huge flaming palm appeared, it was like a scorching sun in the sky, illuminating the night sky within a radius of 10 miles. The terrifyingly high temperature caused the air to burn. The purple-robed old man and the three leaders were immediately alerted. Their faces were filled with horror as they fled. Unfortunately, it was too late for them to escape when they sensed that something was wrong. Boom! The huge flaming palm hit them in an instant, enveloping them and blasting them into the deep pit and ruins below. Amidst the earth-shattering noise, the deep pit on the ground doubled in size and was more than 1,000 meters wide. Dust flew everywhere and covered the sky. The ground within a radius of dozens of miles trembled and cracked open as if there was a super earthquake. Many old and dilapidated houses collapsed from the tremors, causing countless martial artists to flee in panic as they screamed in horror. Countless martial artists were alarmed as they looked at the huge fire in the night sky in horror. No one knew what was going on and could only speculate in their hearts. After a long while, the flames that covered the sky and earth gradually dissipated. The purple-robed elder and the three leaders were all killed by the burning sky palm. The area where the Umbra Palace was located had been completely turned into scorched ruins, leaving only an abyss-like crater. The dust was still floating in the night sky, and the ground was still burning with dark red magma flowing. Ji Tianqing had already left quietly, his figure disappearing into the night sky. The outcome was just as he expected. The black-robed elder had already escaped without a trace. Chapter 659. Ji Tianqing was very clear that not long after he left, the Duanmu family would be alarmed. At that time, the news of the destruction of the Shadow Palace would also spread, causing a lot of shock in the underground city. The Duanmu family would definitely be furious and investigate this matter. The underground city and Central State City would definitely be in turmoil for a while. However, these had nothing to do with him. He flew across the dark sky like a stream of light, and it didn't take long for him to leave the underground city. 2 hours later, Ji Tianqing returned to the Central State City on the surface and rushed to the branch of the Hidden Cloud Pavilion. He had discussed it with Yun Yao before. As long as he found Yun Yao would be responsible for taking Yun out of the Dark City as soon as possible. The two of them agreed to meet at the branch of the Hidden Cloud Pavilion after the matter was over. When he rushed back to the branch of the Hidden Cloud Pavilion, Deacon Li hurriedly greeted him and reported, "Young Master Ji, young Miss has returned and is in the secret room." "And got it." Ji Tianqing nodded and hurried to the secret room. When he entered the secret room, he saw Yun Yao helping Yen heal. Yen was lying on a spiritual jade bed in the corner of the secret room. His eyes were closed, his face was pale, and his breath was very weak. Yun Yao stood by the bed and waved her palms to release true essence into the jade bed. The green spiritual jade bed lit up with a dense green light, bursting with a strong vitality aura, constantly pouring into Yen-Er's body. Ji Tianqing walked to the side of the spiritual jade bed and checked on Yen-Er's situation. Seeing that his injury had stabilized and was not life-threatening, he was slightly relieved. Yun Yao stopped channeling and turned to Ji Tianqing. She asked in a concerned tone, "Tianqing, are you injured? What about the black-robed old man? Did you catch him?" Ji Tianqing shook his head and said calmly, "I'm fine. That old cripple had a spiritual treasure to protect his body, so he escaped. However, he escaped with the help of the Shadow Palace. I have already destroyed the Shadow Palace." Yun Yao was stunned for a moment and asked in disbelief, You actually destroyed the Shadow Palace? Yes. Ji Tianxing nodded. A cold light flickered in his eyes as he said in a deep voice. Just treat it as collecting some interest first and creating some trouble for the Duanmu clan. Yun Yao nodded and stopped talking about this matter. Yan Er's injuries are very serious. Let's help him heal first. Ji Tianxing pondered for a moment before saying, the imperial residence is more suitable for healing. Let's take him back. That's good too. Yun Yao naturally nodded in agreement. After that, the two of them left the Hidden Cloud Pavilion branch with Yan Er and quietly returned to the Monarch Mansion. When they returned to Tianqing Palace, Ji Ku and Qian Yu were already waiting anxiously. Ji Ku and Qian Yu heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that they had returned safely and rescued Yan Er. Ji Tianxing arranged for Yan Er to stay in the secret room and joined hands with Yun Yao to treat his injuries. Tianqing Palace was full of spiritual energy, and there were a lot of elixirs and miraculous medicines. It was very suitable for healing injuries. The two of them spent half a day and helped Yan Er recover more than half of his injuries. Although Yan Er's strength was still weak, it was no longer a big problem. After resting in Tianqing Palace for 10 days to half a month, he would gradually recover. That night, Yan Er finally woke up. Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, Ji Ku, and the others heard the news and quickly entered the secret room to visit. Yan Er was lying on the ice jade bed. His small face was slightly pale and his eyes were a little dim. He was in a bad state. When he saw everyone enter the secret room, he smiled and sat up to greet everyone. Senior brother Tianxing, eldest senior sister, thank you for saving me. And junior sister Ji Ku and Qian Yu. It's all my fault. I made everyone worry again. Yun Yao and Ji Ku quickly comforted him, telling him not to think too much and to rest well. Ji Tianxing frowned and pondered for a moment. He asked Yan Er, the people who captured you this time are the Duanmu family's soul-hurting hall assassins. The mastermind behind this is a black-robed old man with a broken arm and leg. He seems a little strange and claimed to have a grudge with you. Yan why don't you tell us what happened before? Yan nodded and told the cause of the matter in detail. That morning, I entered Zhongzhou City and prepared to go to the Hidden Cloud Pavilion branch to contact the news. Who knew that when I passed by the Wufeng Zhuang, there were 4 assassins dressed in black who attacked me without saying anything. Yan Er's story was the same as the result of the Hidden Cloud Pavilion's investigation. After listening to his words, Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a solemn face, so the Duanmu family captured you to deal with me. Before he could finish, Yan shook his head and said, Senior brother Tianxing, it's not like that. The mastermind is the black-robed old man with a broken arm and leg. He didn't want to deal with you. His target is me. Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, and Ji Ku all showed a puzzled expression. Why do you say that? Junior brother Yan why do you have a grudge with the black-robed old man? Yes, junior brother Yan you haven't traveled in Zhongzhou before. Who would you have a grudge with? Yan frowned and explained in a low voice. After the black-robed old man caught me, I was awake for a few hours. During that time, the black-robed old man talked to himself for a long time like a madman. I can sense that he has the aura of our fire clan. The little flame snake in his palm is most likely the spiritual vein of our fire clan, the 9-flame spiritual snake. Hearing this, Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, and Ji Ku all showed a surprised look. That old cripple is from your fire clan? Since he is from the fire clan and you are the crown prince of the fire clan, why does he want to deal with you? Yan nodded and said in a solemn tone, that old man is indeed from our fire clan. However, he should be an abandoned person who was expelled from the fire clan. He is missing a left arm and a right leg. It seems to be caused by injuries, but in fact, he was tortured by our fire clan. I once heard from my father that our fire clan has a kind of torture called cutting the flesh to return the blood. It is used to punish those who betrayed the fire clan and committed the most heinous crimes. This kind of torture is to cut off the left arm and right leg of the prisoner and let out half of the blood to apologize to the ancestors of the fire clan and repay the kindness of the fire clan. After the prisoners are tortured, they will often die and use their lives to atone for their sins. And those who are lucky enough to survive will be expelled from the fire clan and will never be able to step into the fire clan again. However, this kind of torture has not been seen for many years. After all, our fire clan is very united and loyal. After listening to Yan Er's story, Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, and Ji Ku all felt incredulous and showed a complicated expression. The fire clan actually has this kind of torture?
That black-robed old man's left arm and right leg were cut and half of his blood was let out. But he didn't die.
I guess when he was tortured, his strength had already reached the Sky Origin realm. Only a Sky Origin realm powerhouse can survive this kind of situation. It seems that there is a deep grudge between the black-robed old man and the Fire Clan. Chapter 660. Everyone discussed for a while, but they couldn't come to a conclusion.
Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and said to Yen, if it's really like what you said, that black-robed old man is an abandoned person of the Fire Clan, then he must have a grudge with the Fire Clan.
It's reasonable for him to send people to catch you and claim to have a grudge with you. However, these are all old stories. I'm afraid only your parents know about the twists and turns in it.
Yen nodded in agreement and said, then I'll immediately write a letter to my father and mother and tell them about this matter. Maybe they know the identity of the black-robed old man. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, it should be like this. No matter what grudge the black-robed old man has with the Fire Clan, he shouldn't vent his anger on you. You have to report this matter to the Fire Emperor and Fire Empress. They will definitely think of a way to deal with it. In addition, the Soul-Herding Hall's assassins have already targeted you. If they can catch you once, they can catch you a second time. During this time, you stay in the palace to recuperate. Don't leave the monarch mansion, in case you encounter danger again.
Yun Yao also nodded in agreement and said, yes, only the monarch mansion is safe. After saying that, she looked at Ji Tianqing again, and said in a dignified tone, Tianqing, this time we caused such a big commotion in the underground city. You even destroyed the Shadow Palace. The Duanmu clan must have already received the news. As long as they investigate carefully, it won't be difficult to find us. The Shadow Palace was destroyed, causing the Duanmu clan to suffer a lot of losses, and also a great loss of face. They will definitely retaliate against us. Following this, we should also make our preparations. We have to act carefully in Central Continent City. After Ji Tianqing heard this, he smiled slightly and shook his head gently. Yao, don't worry what you said, I have already thought about it. Since I dared to brazenly destroy the Shadow Palace, I naturally have my plans and considerations. The Shadow Palace is the hidden property of the Duanmu clan. It can't be exposed. It can only be hidden in the underground city. They definitely don't dare to show it on the surface. Even if I destroy the Dark Shadow Palace, the Duanmu clan can only suffer in silence and won't dare to make a fuss. After all, no matter how powerful the Duanmu clan was, they wouldn't dare to openly go against the imperial court's orders. Moreover, the Duanmu clan was a big tree that attracted the wind. They also had many opponents and enemies. After this incident, their opponents and enemies would inevitably make use of this matter to make an issue out of it and take the opportunity to suppress and attack the Duanmu clan. This is not a small problem, and it will definitely give the Duanmu clan a headache. Yun Yao thought for a moment and nodded. That's right. The Dark Shadow Palace was the property of the Duanmu clan. Everyone knew this, but the Duanmu clan would never admit it. Now that the Shadow Palace was in trouble, many families and forces that had grudges with the Duanmu family would definitely take this opportunity to strike. The Duanmu clan has to divert their attention to deal with those opponents, so they can't openly search for and hunt us down. And that's right. Ji Tianqing nodded as a smile appeared on his face. He then continued in a playful tone, besides, since I've decided to take the initiative to attack the Duanmu family, I won't just sit and wait for death. I won't wait for the Duanmu family to come knocking on my door for revenge. Our previous plan has already taken effect. The Duanmu clan has already had internal strife. But this is not enough, and it can't hurt the foundation of the Duanmu clan. With Duanmu Huang's ability, he will definitely settle this matter quickly. So, I have to carry out the second step of the plan, which is to find ways to destroy the Duanmu clan's property. The Duanmu clan has fallen into chaos, and I have to add fuel to the fire to wreak havoc, gradually weakening their power. Hearing this, Yun Yao, Ji Ku and Yen all showed expectant expressions and looked at him with interest. Tianqing, what's the second step of your plan? Big brother Tianqing, how are you going to wreak havoc? At the mention of this question, Ji Tianqing's face showed a playful smile, and said in a low voice, I've been to Greenwood City before, and I've passed by the Manga Jungle twice. As everyone knows, the Manga Jungle is the Duanmu clan's territory, and there are endless medicinal herbs growing there. Also, there are several medicinal gardens that the Duanmu clan has meticulously built in the depths of the Manga Jungle. As long as we find a way to destroy those medicinal gardens,
We can cause huge losses to the Duanmu clan, and greatly weaken their power. After all, the medicinal herbs cultivated in those medicinal gardens are all precious spiritual herbs. Spiritual herbs need to be carefully cultivated, and they will only mature after many years of growth. Only then can they be sold and refined into elixirs. Once the medicinal gardens are destroyed, most of the spiritual herbs will be in short supply, and they will need to be cultivated for many years before they can mature again. The Duanmu clan is an elixir family, and they rely on elixirs to establish themselves in the world. As long as their supply is in short supply, a series of properties will be affected and impacted. Even if the Duanmu clan still has medicinal herbs in storage, they won't be able to maintain it for long. Hearing Ji Tianqing's words, Yun Yao's and Ji Ke's eyes instantly flashed with a bright light as they revealed astonishment. Big brother Tianqing, you want to destroy the Duanmu clan's medicinal gardens? Tianqing, isn't this idea of yours a little too bold? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said in a playful tone, Yao Yao, I understand your concern, but this plan of mine is indeed a little bold. The medicinal gardens in the mango jungle are the foundation and lifeline of the Duanmu clan. The defense must be very tight, and there might even be experts guarding them. Although the Duanmu clan has many enemies and rivals, no one dares to lay a hand on the medicinal gardens. Those forces are either not strong enough, or they don't dare to be so ruthless. After all, destroying the medicinal gardens is equivalent to taking the Duanmu clan's life, and that is an irreconcilable hatred. However, I killed Duanmu Yulong and Duanmu Feiyu. The Duanmu clan has a blood feud with me, and they definitely won't let me go. Since that's the case, I'm not afraid of anything. What's there that I don't dare to do? Yun Yao frowned and thought for a moment, then nodded and said, Tianqing, your idea is not bad. It's very bold, and once it succeeds, it will definitely deal a heavy blow to the Duanmu clan. Actually, my father had the same idea back then, but our Yun clan can't go to war with the Duanmu clan, so we can only think about it. Ji Tianqing nodded in agreement and said, That's right, the three ancient families must maintain peace and balance. This is the imperial court's method of balancing. Only then can we ensure the stability and peace of the human race. However, I'm different. I can use all kinds of methods to deal with the Duanmu clan without any scruples. This is also one of the reasons why I can talk to your father about cooperation. Yun Yao thought for a moment, then said with a serious expression, Tianqing, although your plan is feasible, we must treat it seriously and plan for the long term. The medicinal gardens in the mango jungle are the lifeline of the Duanmu clan, and the defense is very tight. According to the Hidden Cloud Pavilion's understanding, not only are there a large number of elite guards guarding the medicinal gardens, there is also an ancient beast guarding them. Chapter 661. Ancient Mutated Beast? Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows slightly and revealed an interested look. There were very few demonic beast bloodlines from the ancient era. Every ancient mutated beast had unimaginable abilities. They were much more mysterious and powerful than ordinary demonic beasts. Yao Yao, can you tell me more about that ancient mutated beast? Yun Yao frowned and thought for a while. Then she said, I heard my father mention that the ancient mutated beast guarding the Duanmu family's herb garden is called the Firebird of Heaven. That ancient mutated beast is a bird as big as a mountain. It can spit out fire that can burn everything. According to the historical records, the Firebird of Heaven was a rare mutated beast in the ancient era. It can control the power of earth fire and heavenly fire. It is very destructive. A commander of the Hidden Cloud Pavilion once sneaked into the herb garden and observed the Firebird of Heaven at close range. The Firebird of Heaven has been reared by the Duanmu family for hundreds of years. Its strength has reached the half-step soul-tempering realm. That Firebird of Heaven is very close to becoming a demonic emperor mutated beast. It has the chance to become a divine beast in the future. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing immediately frowned, and his eyes became slightly solemn. A half-step soul-tempering realm ancient mutated beast? Has no one dared to destroy the Duanmu family's herb garden? He thought of the mighty miracle god he met in Giant Miracle City. Before he found his heart, he was already a half-step soul-tempering realm cultivator. At that time, he and the other 9 prodigies joined forces to attack the mighty miracle god. They were defeated by the mighty miracle god. If there was really a half-step soul-tempering realm ancient mutated beast in the Duanmu family's herb garden, they would be in big trouble. Apart from soul-tempering realm cultivators, No one could resist the attack of the Firebird of Heaven. With his strength of Sky Origin Stage 4, he was no match for the Firebird of Heaven. Yun Yao nodded and said, "That's right. With the Firebird of Heaven guarding the herb garden, nothing will go wrong. For so many years, no one has dared to destroy the herb garden of the Duanmu family. They don't even dare to get close to it. Tianqing, if you want to destroy the herb garden, you have to think it over carefully." Ji Tianqing thought for a moment, then said in a low voice, "That Firebird is so strong, it will definitely be difficult to deal with. If I don't have a way to deal with the Firebird of Heavenly Wind, I will definitely be seriously injured or even lose my life if I rashly sneak into the Duanmu clan's herb garden. It seems that I really have to think of a foolproof plan before I can start." At this point, everyone fell silent, and the secret chamber fell into silence. Although Ji Tianqing's idea was very good, if he didn't deal with the Firebird, everything would be empty talk. At this moment, a guard came to the door of the secret room and reported the news in a respectful tone.
"My lord, here is a letter for you. Please take a look." Ji Tianqing quickly got up and opened the door of the secret room. He took a letter from the guard. He opened the envelope and took out the letter inside.
He held it in his hands and read it carefully. After reading the contents of the letter, he immediately revealed a smile.
Seeing his expression, Yun Yao and Ji Ku looked at him in confusion.
"Tianqing, whose letter is this?"
"Big brother Tianqing, is there any good news?" Ji Tianqing handed the letter to Ji Ku and nodded with a smile.
He said to the two girls, "There is indeed good news.
This letter is from Senior Beast King. He left Zhongzhou for some business and returned to Beast King Valley in Tianshan region. Now that he has finished his business, he has returned to Zhongzhou City. Senior Beast King said that if we have nothing to do, we can go to Qingfeng Courtyard in Fish Dragon Alley to look for him." Senior Beast King came back just in time. He has dealt with spirit beasts and demonic beasts all his life, so he is very knowledgeable in this field. He definitely knows more about the Firebird of Heavenly Wind. Maybe he has a way to deal with the Firebird of Heavenly Wind. At this point, Ji Tianqing frowned and pondered for a moment. Then he said to Yun Yao, "Yao Yao, you go back and rest first. I'm going to Qingfeng Courtyard to pay a visit to Senior Beast King and ask him about the Firebird of Heavenly Wind. If Senior Beast King can help me think of a way, I'll come to you to discuss this matter." Yun Yao nodded in agreement. She said goodbye to everyone and turned to leave the secret room. After she left, Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku also walked out of the secret room. Ji Ku saw that Ji Tianqing wanted to visit the Beast King alone, so she pulled his arm and said, "Big brother Tianqing, we haven't seen Senior Beast King for a long time. I want to go to Qingfeng Courtyard with you." Ji Tianqing didn't refuse and nodded without hesitation. Then, the two of them rode Qian Yu and flew into the sky, rushing toward the exit of the Monarch Mansion. 2 hours later, Qian Yu carried the two of them to the end of Fish Dragon Alley and landed outside the gate of Qingfeng Courtyard. The guards at the gate recognized Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku. Naturally, they cupped their hands in greeting and hurriedly opened the gate. The two of them hadn't returned to Qingfeng Courtyard for a few months. When they entered the courtyard, they saw that the courtyard hadn't changed much. However, on a few big trees in the courtyard, there were a few clever and cute little spirit monkeys. They were playing happily. Ji Tianqing recognized those little spirit monkeys. When he went to Beast King Valley to pay a visit to the Beast King, he saw those cute little guys. Obviously, the Beast King brought these little spirit monkeys to Zhongzhou City when he returned to Beast King Valley this time. After a while, Ji Tianqing, Ji Ku, and Qian Yu entered the main hall and saw the Beast King, whom they hadn't seen for a long time. The Beast King was dressed as usual. He was tall and thin, wearing a white robe. His eyes contained a calm and tranquil temperament. The two of them brought Qian Yu into the main hall and bowed to the Beast King with a smile. "Senior Beast King, long time no see." "Senior Beast King, we're here to visit you." The Beast King quickly got up and walked in front of the two of them. He said with a smile, "We haven't seen each other for a few months. Seeing that you're safe and sound and that your strength has improved, this old man is relieved." The two of them exchanged a few pleasantries and sat down. They sat down and chatted while drinking tea. The Beast King stroked his beard and looked at Ji Tianqing with sparkling eyes. He said with a heart full of gratification, "Tianqing, in the past few months, this old man has heard many of your deeds in Tianshan region. I didn't expect that in just a few months, you'd grow so quickly. This old man thought that after you entered the Monarch Mansion,
You'd have to cultivate in peace for a year or two before you could stand out. I didn't expect that your name would shake the world so quickly. You've become a peerless genius admired by all the warriors in the world and even became the Tianshan region lord. You don't know how shocked and proud this old man was when I heard the news. That old fogey Chu Tian is really lucky to have such an outstanding disciple like you. If this old man could meet such an outstanding genius disciple like you, I'd wake up laughing even in my dreams. It had been 2 to 3 months since Ji Tianqing had become the territorial lord of the Tianshan region. Chapter 662. The Beast King praised Ji Tianqing generously for the legend and miracle that he had created. However, after he calmed down, he frowned and revealed a worried expression. Tianqing, although you are now a world-renowned peerless genius and have also become the Tianshan region lord. However, you killed Duanmu Yulong, so the Duanmu family will not let you off. That Duanmu family is one of the 3 ancient families. Although you are the Tianshan region lord, you do not have your own power and background. I am really worried that if the Duanmu family uses despicable methods to take revenge on you, you will not be able to deal with it. Seeing the Beast King's worried expression, Ji Tianqing hurriedly nodded and said, Senior Beast King, you are right. The Duanmu family is already secretly dealing with me. However, no matter how powerful the Duanmu family is, I will not sit and wait for death. Coincidentally, I have encountered a troublesome matter, so I specially came here today to ask for your advice. The Beast King instantly raised his eyebrows and asked, Oh? What is it? Nephew, please tell me directly. I will do my best to help. Ji Tianqing explained his plan and asked the Beast King about the heavenly wind firebird. When the Beast King heard that he wanted to destroy the Duanmu family's herb garden, his face was filled with shock and disbelief. Tianqing, you actually want to destroy the Duanmu family's herb garden? That is something that countless powers want to do but do not dare to do. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, That's right. I want to do what others do not dare to do. Only by doing what others cannot do can I heavily injure the Duanmu family. Senior Beast King, do you know about the heavenly wind firebird that guards the herb garden? Is there any way to deal with it? The Beast King frowned and said with a grave expression, I naturally know about the heavenly wind firebird, this ancient beast. According to legends, the heavenly wind firebird is a beast born from the union of the divine bird vermilion bird and the spiritual beast green bird. The heavenly wind firebird is a noble bloodline among the spiritual beasts and birds. It has an extremely high status and prestige. They live on volcanoes that are thousands of feet high, and usually build their nests near the crater of the volcano. Normally, they would devour the power of heavenly flames and astral winds. Every time the volcano erupted, they would also absorb a large amount of earth flame essence. So, the firebird of the heavens and earth is most adept at controlling the spirit flames of the heavens and the earth and strong winds. A single flap of its wings is capable of sweeping up monstrous flames that incinerate everything. Speaking of the firebird of heavenly wind, the Beast King's words were clear and logical. Clearly, he was no stranger to this ancient beast. The heavenly wind firebird is extremely rare. Since the ancient times, it has disappeared without a trace and has almost never appeared again. There were probably only a few heavenly wind firebirds left in the world. I didn't think that the Duanmu family actually possessed a sky wind firebird. Truly inconceivable. The Beast King's tone was somewhat astonished. After muttering to himself for a moment, he said with a serious expression, The Duanmu family's heavenly wind firebird has actually reached the half-step spirit refinement stage. Even if this old man were to make a move personally, I'm afraid I would still be powerless. Even if I used all my means, I still wouldn't be able to subdue it. Hearing his words, Ji Tianqing frowned, and a worried look appeared in his eyes. He thought to himself, even with the Beast King's experience and means, he still can't deal with that heavenly wind firebird. Looks like destroying the Duanmu family's herb garden is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Ji Tianqing's mood was downcast. Unwilling to give up, he asked the Beast King, Senior Beast King, is there really no way to deal with that heavenly wind firebird? The Beast King frowned and pondered for a moment before replying in a low voice. It's not that there's no way at all. However, the method that this old man has thought of is truly too difficult to achieve. There's no need to mention it. A look of hope appeared in Ji Tianqing's eyes. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, No, Senior Beast King, please tell me. Perhaps I have a chance to realize your method? The Beast King thought for a moment before nodding and saying, "All right, then this old man will speak frankly. Everything in the world has a spirit, and they all reinforce and subdue each other, just like the power of the 5 elements. No matter if it's demon beasts, spirit beasts, or strange beasts, as long as they don't jump out of the 5 elements, they have to abide by the principle of mutual reinforcement and subtraction. No matter how powerful a strange beast is, it has its natural nemesis and natural enemy. In the ancient legends, although the heavenly wind firebird is incomparably powerful, it's an ancient strange beast second only to a divine beast. However, the heavenly wind firebird also has its natural enemy. Its natural enemy is the ice dragon rhinoceros." Hearing this, Ji Tianxing was stunned for a moment. Jike's face was also full of astonishment. He subconsciously asked, "Senior Beast King, don't tell me that your method is to let us find an ice dragon rhinoceros to deal with the heavenly wind firebird?" The Beast King couldn't help but laugh. He waved his hand and explained, "Cuckoo, you're mistaken. The ice dragon rhinoceros is an ancient strange beast born from the union of the frost divine dragon and the heaven-shaking rhinoceros. It's already on the verge of extinction. How can we find it? The method that this old man has thought of is to use a dharma treasure called the ice dragon hammer. It can restrain the heavenly wind firebird." Ji Tianxing and Ji Ku were enlightened. Their eyes were filled with anticipation. "Ice dragon hammer? Is it a soul-grade dharma treasure? Where is this dharma treasure now? How can we get it?" The Beast King explained patiently. The ice dragon hammer is indeed a soul-grade dharma treasure. It's also one of the demon clan's most treasured dharma treasures. It's said that it was refined from the skull of an ice dragon rhinoceros by an ancient demon clan almighty after killing it. That skull is the hardest bone in the entire body of the ice dragon rhinoceros, and the end is connected to the rhinoceros horn. Therefore, the shape of that skull looks like a huge hammer. The ice dragon hammer contains the power of the ice dragon rhinoceros and can release endless heavenly ice-cold air and thousand-year-old cold wind. It's just right to restrain the power of the heavenly wind firebird. It's a pity that the ice dragon hammer is regarded as a treasure by the demon clan. It hasn't appeared for more than 100 years. How can you obtain it?" Ji Tianxing and Ji Ku instantly understood. No wonder the Beast King said that this method couldn't be realized. It was better not to mention it. Since the ice dragon hammer was a treasure of the demon clan, it must be strictly protected. They didn't have any connections or friendship with the demon clan. It was impossible for them to borrow it, much less snatch the ice dragon hammer. Even if the Beast King told them this method, it would be useless. Ji Tianxing was silent for a while before he cupped his hands and bowed. "Thank you, Senior Beast King, for clearing my doubts. This junior can't thank you enough." The Beast King said earnestly, "Tianxing, that ice dragon hammer is in the hands of the demon imperial court. It's impossible for you to obtain it. I suggest that you reconsider." Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a smile, "Thank you, Senior, for your reminder. I will consider it carefully and think of a way." The Beast King only nodded slightly and didn't say anything else. Of course, he could see that Ji Tianxing had made up his mind to destroy the Duanmu clan's herb garden. Although Ji Tianxing didn't show it on the surface, he was actually thinking about how to obtain the ice dragon hammer. Next, Ji Tianxing asked the Beast King a few more questions. "You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.